السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Okay guys, so can you guys see, can you guys hear? Let me know if it's working. Inshallah. Just wait for people to come on. I got a bit late, but inshallah I want to start at 9. But inshallah, I think 9:30 is okay, inshallah. Yeah. Allahu Akbar wa lillahi alhamd. Right, so can you guys hear? Is it working? Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. Okay, excellent. Alright, so I think we should start then. Alright, so let's see if it's going to, should be going to social media. Yep, it's on there. So there's loads of questions, yeah. So let's start. First of all, to find out where we stopped last time. Okay, let's see these. Okay, so alright, so let's start with this then. So Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Right. Yeah, so guys, you know what to do, yeah? Give likes. Give likes, subscribe, share this with other people as well. And if you don't, I'm gonna come in your dreams. Only joke. Alright, so first question. Can animal bird down feathers be used for coats? Yeah, so the question is, if a person has a coat or some type of article of clothing which has filled inside of it animals or bird feathers, animals fur and bird feathers, can this be allowed? Yes. Yeah, according to Hanafis, what Hanafis say is that that part of an animal which is not part of the flesh, right? So meat, etc., blood, then you're allowed to use it. So bones and fur, feathers, hair, these kind of things, those are totally permissible. Apart from pig is the only animal we can't use, right? And even in pig, when it comes to pig hair, like boar bristles, Hanafis have allowed that if there is a dire need to use it, right, in stitching material together. But if there's no need and if there's other alternatives available, then no, you can't use it. So any other animal, as long as the hair is used, feathers, or even in bones, that's usable, guys. Okay. Next question. Are you related to Mufti Hassan Salim? No, I am not related to him. I know him though, but I'm not related to him. He's a friend who lives in Birmingham. What is the evidence that celebrating birthdays is not haram? Are some Hanafis more lenient on this? I mean, I have not seen any evidence for why celebrating birthdays is haram. I've not seen any solid evidence for it. I mean, those people who say that it's not allowed is because they're using this general principle that we're not supposed to imitate other people. So they say if you celebrate birthdays, you're basically imitating, I don't know, I don't think Christians, it's not part of their faith. It's not part of the Jewish faith. I don't think it's any religious faith celebrating birthdays. It's something which a lot of people do, And I think some people assume that because many Muslim communities don't do it, that it's something which is impermissible in Islam, which is not the case, because then you have to be kind of consistent in what you're not going to follow. So imitation has to be consistent then. So if you're saying that imitating birthday is not allowed, then you have to be consistent in other things as well, like National Day, or for example, like even having certain holidays, or even having weekends, etc. So yeah, birthdays are allowed. And then those people who argue that you're just wasting money, well then, going out for a meal with your friends is wasting money as well. And just celebrating a job that you got, or celebrating Bukhari Khatam that you do, this is also, something which is... So yeah, birthdays are allowed. Is it makruh to lead salah if you trim your beard less than a fist? So again, this would differ with regards to fiqh, basically. So this is a difference of fiqh opinion with regards to the size of the beard. Some scholars would say that cutting the beard very short is not allowed. Some scholars would say that it is allowed. So this is why, it would all go down to that. I would say, look, that as long as the person hasn't committed an open act of sin, then pray behind him. Totally permissible, because these are ikhtilafi issues. And some of the madhab Shafis, for example, like they have opinions where trimming the entire beard, as long as there's some hairs on the jawline, cheek area, this fine. And even some of the Hanafis, Turkish Hanafis, Egyptian Hanafis, Syrian Hanafis, Jordanian Hanafis, if you look at them, their beards are very short, right? And beard being long or beard being short is not itself a qat'i issue. It's not a categorically sinful, or it's not categorically something which is part of our faith. Yeah, this is an ikhtilafi issue, difference of opinion, valid opinion, both sides. Okay, and I know Indian subcontinent scholars are quite strict on this issue. Indian subcontinent are quite strict on this, and someone may argue the Arab Hanafis, Turkish Hanafis are quite lenient on this. That's not really... being lenient and strict doesn't mean you're closer to God, right? That's something that people need to understand, that this idea of being the stricter you are, the closer you are to God, and the more lenient you are, the more... right? That's really a kind of fallacy, that is. Yes, if a person themselves want to be very strict, that's up to them. But to say that everyone has to be strict, no. Is it makruh to shave your mustache? There's a difference of opinion amongst the early scholars because of the issue of we don't have like any sort of narration that the Prophet ﷺ shaved his mustache. Like, we don't have the word shave being used, halaqa. But we have many narrations that indicate that he used to cut it very short. And some Sahaba used to cut it extremely short, so much so that it was similar to shaving. This is why some of the early Hanafis actually said that trimming the mustache very short is actually considered to be preferred. And others said that, just cutting it over the lip line is what is recommended. So yeah, cutting the mustache is not makruh according to majority of scholars. Is Bukhari 100% authentic? It depends what you mean by authentic. See, when people say, is Bukhari authentic? There's two questions that come to mind. Do you mean attributing this book to Imam Bukhari, that he was the author of this book? Do you mean that? As in, is it authentically ascribed to Bukhari? Or do you mean that the hadith in Bukhari are authentic? Now, when you mean that, in usul, have you studied usul al-hadith? Do you understand the concept of authenticity of hadith, how you authenticate hadith, how hadith are graded, what does it mean to be authentic? I would only really answer this question if a person has studied usul hadith. And if you have studied usul hadith, you know exactly the answer to this question, which is that Imam Bukhari used his particular criteria for authenticating hadith, which is considered to be a generally acceptable way of authenticating hadith. And majority of scholars say that the hadith in Bukhari are authentic according to his conditions. For those who haven't studied usul hadith, you are not going to understand the concept of authenticity. You're just not going to understand it, because in your mind, what do you mean by authenticity? Right? Because authenticity actually has grades of authenticity. It's not just authentic as either hadith is authentic or not. It doesn't work like that. There's grades of authenticity. How do we know every hadith in Bukhari is authentic? Yes, how do we know this? Because we have to study the science of usul hadith. Right? So, in a nutshell, the Prophet ﷺ, he came 1,500 years ago, yeah? Now, his statements and his companions who passed down the things that they saw from him and heard from him, they passed it down to their students. and then their students told their students, and then their students. So there is this transmission of people telling about what happened in the past. So this transmission has various grades of transmission, and this requires learning about narrators, learning about if they had done anything which was contrary to Islam, learning about memory as well, how strong people's memory was. If a person's memory is weak, do you accept their hadith, do you not accept their hadith, and so forth. So there is a rigorous testing that takes place when narrations are being authenticated, and this rigorous testing is something which many people are unaware of. Those who don't study usul hadith, they're unaware of this. So what I would suggest is, for those people, they should study usul hadith. And inshallah, I am still in the process of planning a whole series on usul hadith from scratch all the way to advanced level on my YouTube channel. And if a person watches that, inshallah, they're going to become more familiar with the science of usul hadith, and they are going to be able to understand how hadith work. Right? They're going to understand how hadith work. So when people say to someone, is this whole hadith authentic or is it unauthentic, you'd be able to know how to explain to them. So for someone, see, how do we know every hadith in Bukhari is authentic? It's like someone asking a doctor, how do you know that a particular illness is cancer? How do you know a particular individual is free of an illness? Right? It requires the doctor to explain to you the principles and the rules regarding the human body. Yeah. So this is why it's not a simple answer a person can give to know how do we know all the hadith in Sahih Bukhari are authentic. First of all, it requires you to understand what does authenticity mean, and then number two is, how do we know that the authenticity of Bukhari is considered to be a relatively acceptable authenticity. So this is something which requires a person to study. Is it true that narrators came 200 years after the Prophet ﷺ? No, it's not true. So look, when we have hadith, like I said, for example, like the Prophet ﷺ, he said something. Now, how long did the Prophet ﷺ live for? So he lived for 63 years approximately. And how long did he live in the time of the Quran? So 23 years, yeah? So the Prophet ﷺ passed down the Quran, right? So the Quran being passed down is undeniable, right? It's something that no one can deny, that the Prophet ﷺ, he passed down the Quran. That's something no one can deny. There is no chain for this. We don't have a concept of chains for passing down the Quran. Okay, so this is something you have to understand. The explanation of the Quran that he gave, this was in the form of, let's say, wudu, or salat, or zakat, or hajj, or fasting. So how many people saw the Prophet ﷺ pray salat? How many people saw him do wudu? How many people saw him do hajj? Depending on how many people saw him, they are going to pass down to other people what they saw basically and what they heard. So when they pass down what they see and what they hear, now the question comes is everyone's transmission going to be accepted? So the scholars started testing people to see whether they were reliable or not. So this form of testing that took place is what is known as usul al-hadith. Right? So the testing of whether we can accept this statement. Many statements of people in the past have been rejected. Right? There's actually books that have been written. Scholars have a whole compilation of narrators, that these narrators, thousands of narrators, if their name ever comes in any hadith, you do not accept that hadith, or you are extremely cautious of that hadith. So people don't realize this, that the scholars were so meticulous about the compilation of hadith that they had even written down the names of those people who were unreliable, just so that future generations know who is reliable and who's unreliable. So this is why when we talk about narrators, Sahaba were narrators, and muhaddithin were narrators, and all sorts of, you can say, all sorts of people like that were narrators. So no, it's untrue that this is an Orientalist Islamophobes. They kind of use this. Okay, 1 second. Let me just. So again, like we said, this is something which we have to try and understand, and we have to study. Simple answer is that we have to study. These kind of people. 1 second. Okay, next. How to deal with waswasa. I mean, look, I am not an expert in waswasa, and I always say this: go to your doctors, speak to your doctors about waswasa, OCD, and they will tell you about this. Right? So speak to your doctors. I would say that's the best thing that you can do. There's no other real. I'm not an expert in this field. This has nothing to do with Islam. Like waswasa is not something which is directly from Islam. It's something which humans suffer from. It's a form of OCD, and you need to get checked out by the doctor. How do you get rid of racism in the community? I mean, that's something we all have to work towards. Yeah. How do you get rid of crime in the community? I think this is not an answer which Islam has an answer to. Islam just tells you don't do it. So there's no okay. Okay, mashallah, we've got some very interesting characters coming on today. All right. So anyway, is it better to marry? And so these kind of questions, how do you get real racism? Scholars do not have the answer to this, right? This is not something which scholars have the answer to. So how do you get rid of racism? This is something which community needs to work towards. So a lot of people, they have this misunderstanding that scholars know how to get rid of racism. Scholars know how to get rid of jealousy. Scholars don't know this. This is something which people have to work towards, right? Scholars may be experts in explaining a text, or maybe experts in a certain specialized field, but scholars do not know how to run politics. They don't know how to establish, a firm sort of like solution for all the problems of the world of poverty. Scholars will try to work with others. Okay. Yeah, I know, mashallah, these people have just popped up today. Okay, anyway, next. Is it better to marry outside your culture so families get used to people from different races? Allah knows best whether you should get married to outside the culture. Again, this is not a scholarly questions. I won't be answering these kind of questions. So these kind of questions are not answer questions which I am specialized in. These are kind of questions maybe people can ask, I don't know, their friends or their family members or even their community, right? So it's not necessarily... Okay, how do you deal with narrow-minded individuals who believe that their understanding of deen is most correct? Like some brothers have the opinion that topi is sunnah and force their opinions on others. So with these kind of people, what I would say is that you need to slowly try to show them the deen. Yeah, show them the deen. In other words, the deen that they see is a very narrow sort of interpretation of the deen. So they need to meet other people. They need to meet other scholars. They need to sit with other individuals. For example, like if there is a specific community, like for example, India subcontinent, certain communities in the subcontinent are you can say are very strict on certain ideas, and these people, maybe if they meet with other people like Arabs, or if they regularly meet with Turkish or other Hanafis, they'll slowly start to see the wus'ah, the kind of scope that the deen has. So I would say all of these kind of things is generally because some communities are very strict on this. Yeah, I think I'll make some people. How do I make moderators on this? I'll make you a moderator. Yeah, so you're a moderator. Anyone else want to be a moderator? Yeah, you can be some moderators on this. So anyone who pops up, you guys can. Yeah, you guys can deal with them. Okay. Do you believe we need to get rid of labels like Salafi, Deobandi, Brelvis, as we are all Muslims? They are only slightly different. Yes, definitely we need to get rid of all these labels, because these labels serve no purpose besides, at the moment, all they are doing is causing division. And I mean, if a person has these labels with them, generally, all they want to prove is a point, right? So, I mean, in the past, these labels served a purpose. And once that purpose is served, that's it, we should carry on. Like, for example, the Muhajirin and the Ansar. Muhajirin was a label that was given to those who migrated from Mecca. And the Ansar was the label that was given to those Sahaba who were indigenous to the people of Medina, right? So their names are just there to identify them. That's all it is. Like Allah says, that Allah has, made you into groups and tribes so that you recognize one another, just for recognition purposes. And once they started to use these labels against one another, the Prophet ﷺ got angry at them, and he said, this is Jahiliyyah, right? So Jahiliyyah is wrong. Yeah, in other words, if these labels are going to start to cause friction between people and division between people, then it's wrong. We should never have these labels to cause division. The Ummah is one. We believe one Allah. We believe in one Prophet ﷺ. We believe in one book. And so our aim should be one. Yes, differences in opinion, that's something else. So having a difference in opinion is something which is valid, and we can have differences of opinion. If differences of opinion is actually something which is acceptable. Okay. All right. Okay, Mancha is Nancha. All right. Next, do you think the Ubandi Masjid should invite Salafi and Brelvi scholars for talks on topics we agree on, not on fiqh, aqidah, so their community can see despite? Yeah, definitely, I agree. I'm totally for this. I mean, I sometimes give talks, and on the panel will be speakers from other, affiliations. So I totally agree with this. I have no issue. As long as the person is not someone who is actively causing problems for the community, I won't have a problem with giving talks with them. Okay, many youngsters don't like to come to Bayan due to them feeling judged by elders. Is there any other way to bring them to the masjid? More youngsters will come to the Bayan if it's in university. And yeah, unfortunately, sadly, that's a big problem we have in our communities, where masjids, unfortunately, now are starting to become like clubs, where you have to have a certain attire when you enter the masjid, or you have to be of a certain kind of fiqh or something. Otherwise, people start to give you some dirty looks and all that. So this is a sad thing in many masjids. It's not in all masjids, and I think masjids should be more welcoming. Generally, people feel more comfortable in like a lot of the Arab masjids. Like if you notice, people feel more welcoming in those kind of masjids for some reason. And India subcontinent masjids, I think they seem to be a bit more strict. Okay, do you feel masjids need to offer counselling service? Yeah, why not? I mean, masjids don't have to do it. I think community needs to have it. The community needs to have it. Yeah, definitely. Muslim community, not necessarily the masjid. The problem is that sometimes what happens is masjids, they tend to cause a lot of problems in the community with the committees. So sometimes the committee themselves can be more problematic than the masjid itself. It's the people who run make the decisions, and sometimes these can be very close knit and you can't get into them, and unfortunately that's the situation. So I would say every Muslim community should have these kind of things. People should get together and people should set up their own organization. They should have it funded by the community. All the members of the community should pay something into it, and they should have some counseling service. They should have youth issues and etc. Yeah, definitely, I agree. But I don't think it's necessarily the masjid's responsibility for it. Ideally, these kind of things used to be the duty of the leader, the Muslim leaders. So the Muslim leader government would take charge of all these things and would appoint. Masjid never have a committee. It was the government that would run them. And that's the kind of ideal thing. What is your view on visit my mosque, where some scholars are against it? Yeah, I think it's a very good thing. Yeah, I think it's especially in the times that we're in. It's in our community at the moment, with the stigma that is attached towards masjids in the non-Muslim community. I think we should definitely have this, visit a mosque day, and people should be able to see what happens in the masjid. We should be very transparent with our non-Muslim neighbors and community, so that this can become a means for them to respect our religion. So see, you have to put yourself in the non-Muslim shoes, and you have to realize that non-Muslims will see us like we see Hindus, or like how we see Jews, or how we see other communities. We don't really interact with them that much in their religious affairs, so we don't know what happens inside of them. Yeah, and I've been to churches, I've been to Hindu temples, and I've seen inside of them how they are. And once you kind of get to know them, then you realize that these are just like normal human beings like everyone else. and we differ with them in our beliefs, but yet still we can have respect for them. Okay, who was your favorite teacher in Darul Uloom and what was your favorite subject? Again, this kind of favorite one is a very difficult one for me. It all depends upon which teacher and what subject, because some teachers will teach certain subjects very, very good, and some teachers will teach other subjects not as good. So it all depends on teachers. I mean, some of my teachers who are very, very good at what they teach. Obviously, one of my favorite teachers is Sheikh Thaqib. I mean, I could study everything from him because he was like very good in everything. Maybe another teacher was Mufti in Amul Haq. Yeah, he was very, very good at fiqh. And another teacher, maybe Sheikh Anwar Badakhshani in Hadith. Yeah, Sheikh Fadl Muhammad maybe in Maqamat al-Hariri. Okay. Is calamari halal? So for Hanafis, it would be disliked to eat it, highly disliked, and for others it'll be fine. Shafis, Malikis, others, they say it's fine. I heard some people say that we should wear jubbas, as wearing jubba is the dress of the pious. Is this wrong to say, as people are not wearing jubbas may be more pious? In the case, wearing jeans and a topi and a top is clothing of the pious. Okay, so let me just clarify something here. So basically, look, as a Muslim, what is our duty? Our duty is to be submissive to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to submit to Almighty Allah's instructions. Alhamdulillah, this is what we're trying to do. Now, this submitting to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is in those things that are to do with our faith. Yeah, so what is our faith? Shahada, La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah, Salat, Zakat, Hajj, etc. These things. Right, so this is where we are considered to be submitters to Almighty Allah. Now, when it comes to things like clothing, when it comes to things like natural sort of things that people that go into the toilet, etc., there's no specific, you can say there's no specific sort of like religious instructions for it, except for a few. So for instance, like not to overeat, right? Or for example, not to face in the direction of the Qibla when you go toilet, and so forth. But as for everything else, there doesn't seem to be a strict religious sort of like, if there ever is something from the Prophet ﷺ about eating or drinking, then that is usually to do with health reasons, right? So it's like a health and safety issue. That's what it basically kind of is. So this is why clothing is generally not a religious command from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yes, clothing, dressing modestly is, but the specific color of the clothes or the size of the clothes, etc., this isn't really kind of religious per se. Okay. And so some people say that you should wear the clothing of the pious people of the community. Now this is a very vague statement. This is because obviously if you look at the Sahaba, we won't find a hadith that most of them used to imitate the Prophet ﷺ's clothing. We don't find that. Nowhere. I mean, to my knowledge, I've never found anything like that. Yes, a few of them would, but not all of them. And in fact, the Prophet ﷺ's clothing used to come from outside, came from Yemen, it came from Byzantine, it came from other areas. So it wasn't a Muslim dress. It was the Prophet ﷺ's clothing that he would wear, and most likely he would wear like the ihram clothing, one wrapping underneath and one like kind of shawl that he would throw on top. So that was basically it. So when people say the clothing of the pious, when we think of pious, it doesn't mean a Maulana, the clothing that the Maulana wears, or the clothing that the Tablighi brothers wear, or the clothing of someone else. It doesn't necessarily mean that. It means something pious clothing, as in something which is a clothing of modest people, good people, people, upright people in the community. So in different communities, obviously, pious people wear. So a person who is pious in the community, a person who is really upright in the community, is going to be wearing clothing which is going to be good for them. It's illogical that you're going to find someone who's upright and the clothing they're going to wear is against Islamic sort of ethos. Yeah, so this is why generally, if there's a pious person, he wears a suit or wears, some sensible clothing, then that's fine. Doesn't necessarily have to be a jubba. Okay, with LGBT, is homeschooling the best option as curriculum has to be taught in all schools, including? I mean, I think people are unaware. I've spoken to many individual teachers who are involved in LGBT curriculums, and they say to me that it's not as bad as people make it out to be. In fact, the school can actually come out with a curriculum as long as it fits certain criteria. It's fine to use, right? And it's one of those things that sometimes is blown out of proportion, and people are made to be scared about the LGBT curriculum. So I think people who want to know more about this need to speak to people who are involved in this, so who are involved in making curriculums, and they need to speak to them, and they'll give them a better answer. I don't know. I don't have children, so I don't know whether homeschooling is good, whether sending them to school is good. I can't really tell. But I would say speak to other people who are heavily involved in this, in understanding how this is going to affect their children. So at the moment, I know it's not like law to have this taught exactly. Like there's not a specific way to teach it. The Muslim community in some schools have come out with they're actually coming out with a syllabus which can be replicated in many schools around the world, around the country rather. Is wrestling, swimming, archery sunnah or sunnah ada? It's sunnah ada. Yeah, all these things are sunnah ada. How can you manage your time more effectively? So, okay, how do you manage your time more effectively? I'll tell you some tips that I find very, very beneficial. Number one is pray your salats on time. 5 times salat, pray on time. Okay, that's one thing. Number 2 is when you get up in the morning, read Quran or listen to Quran. Every day, do some dhikr, and you'll see that Allah will put barakah in your day. Number 3 is in the morning, for the first few hours of the morning, don't answer emails, don't answer social media, don't do any of that unless it's really urgent. Don't spend your time in that, because that's the thing that's going to distract you. So you want to get all the main things out of the way, then do all these things. All right, and then after 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, something like that, then you can answer them. And number 4 is get up early in the morning. Yeah, get a habit of getting up early, going to sleep early, and your day will become more organized. What else you can do is you can schedule what you need to cover in the day. So the night before or in the morning when you wake up, have a piece of paper or in your phone, write down a list of 3 or 4 things that you need to do in the day. So for example, you might need to mark some papers, you might need to read a chapter in a book, you might need to meet someone, you might need to teach a lesson. So mark these things, and everything else you can fit in around those. And once you get the habit of this, alhamdulillah, it can actually work. Okay, next question, how can you sort out phone internet addiction? Okay, I mean, this is something like any addiction that person has. You need to try and create some sort of environment around yourself that stops you from going towards it. Addictions will never stop unless you replace it with something else. Any addiction that you have. People have smoking addictions. They tell them, eat chewing gums or eat sweets, etc. So these kind of things, that you have to kind of have a sort of like a substitute of. Likewise, phone addiction. So for example, an easy phone addiction would be to turn off your internet. Yeah, simply turn off your internet, and so you don't have to keep checking, or keep your phone separate away from you for a few hours. Turn your phone off sometimes, and test yourself in the day how long you can stretch it for. So sometimes don't try to not use your phone. Turn your phone off for an hour. Try to stretch it, and then after maybe a week, 2 hours. Then after like 3 hours. So there you can kind of have. There are some devices like some sort of like apps you can have, which actually switch off all of your internet, everything, and just leave the basic in your phone. And then every time you kind of check it, then everything switches on. So you don't keep on seeing messages coming to you. Okay. If someone is addicted to pornography, what is the best way to remove the addiction? If a person's addicted to pornography, same as before. Like pornography is usually because people are lonely, people are alone, away from other people. It kind of goes into a cycle. You watch pornography, it gives you addicted, then it leads to masturbation or leads to other kind of things, and then it cycle again, and then you want to watch more pornography, and then so what you need to do basically is, again, you need to block these sites. So put onto your phone some sort of blocker that you can't get access to these, or only use your internet when other people are around. Yeah, so these are the kind of things you have to put in place. Ask Allah for protection as well. Ask Allah to save you. Get into a group. I mean, there are some groups out there who have this kind of thing I've seen on Facebook, where they'll tell you how many days they've gone without pornography or without masturbation, for example. And then what you do is basically you try to cut down. So for example, if there's a person who is regularly involved in, let's say, masturbation or these kind of things, and they're doing it every single day or every other day, then a person should try to, let's say, cut it down to, let's say, see how they can last for an entire week, and then see how they can last for 2 weeks, and then see how they can last for a month, like that. So you stretch your time as the longer you can last, and that way you replace. The other thing is eat healthy food. A lot of this kind of happens is because people eat a lot of junk food. So you'll see this regularly pattern with people who are involved in, let's say, these kind of things. You'll find them involved in eating a lot of junk food, staying up real late, getting up late, missing fajr. These are the kind of common things. So once you break this pattern, then inshallah Allah will make it easy for you. Yeah, try to get up for tahajjud now and again. Okay, do you feel that Tablighi Jamaat is the best solution for youngsters in this day and age? Not necessarily. Tablighi Jamaat is a movement that was started by Maulana Ilyas in the early last century. And this was a movement to revive Islam in amongst the Muslims, right? To make people start practicing again, basically. It was a kind of revival movement, you can say. And alhamdulillah, it's a very powerful sort of movement. It works very well, but it's not a universal solution. It's not a ultimate solution for everyone. It's like, it's like a what's the word for it? Like a kind of a last resort, you can say. There are other things that need to be put in place. So Tablighi Jamaat, what it will do is it will create inside of many people, not everyone, many people will be positively affected by it, but many people will not be inclined to it. Maybe they might be inclined towards studying, they might be inclined towards other activism in the community. Yeah, so this is the kind of thing that that people have to realize, that in Islam there is no organization that is perfect. There is no one organization in Islam. There never has ever been, right? And except for Allah and His Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, everything else, like the Imam Malik used to say, that everyone else is lacking, is imperfect, except for the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam's words. Yeah, everyone else can be criticized except for the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and Allah. So this is why once we realize this, we know what the Tablighi Jamaati brothers are doing. Alhamdulillah, it's a very good thing. What the Tazkiyah brothers are doing, it's a very good thing. What other organizations, brothers and sisters are doing, alhamdulillah, these are very, very good things. And everyone is trying to work towards the main thing. Okay, Salam Ustad. On the recent Q&A, you said that extended warranties and appliances are haram. And okay, so extended warranties basically are like a kind of, you can say, a form of high risk investment. And high risk investments are something that's not allowed in the Sharia because it falls under excessive uncertainty. So for example, it's like insurance. You're paying for something where you're uncertain you're going to get something back, right? You're uncertain whether you're going to have a car accident. So it's like the money is going. So the same with warranties. Warranty is like an insurance. So you are paying for something. If something happens to you, the big if, that you're going to get something back. And if it doesn't, then you get nothing back. Your money's gone. Right, so that's why it's a high risk. Yeah, al-mal al-khatar. Okay, wa alaikum assalam. Please give some advice. Me and my husband have been married for a very long time. Most things involves throwing something, swearing at me a lot. We have always shrugged it off as we have seen a bit petty to argue. I have concluded, however, that his reactions are not likely to change. They have in 8 years. My husband it's because of his feelings. The problem is that I don't ever be able to not intentionally hurts him, so I fear I'll get a reaction like I do. Okay, so I think this is a bit of a private one, so I'll have to just send a message for this one. Okay, so right, next one. Assalamu alaikum. Is it haram to take longer lunch breaks at work? Will it make my money haram? For example, I work from 9 to 5 in office. I get my work done. However, sometimes instead of 1 hour break, I'll take 2 hours or 3, sometimes 4. But I clock 1 hour lunch. Does this make my money haram? I do this because my work is finished anyway. So if not, I'd just be at work watching YouTube. Okay, so right. So first of all, when it comes to these kind of questions, what we have to remember is as long as the boss is okay with this, as long as your manager is okay with it, then it's fine. Nothing's wrong with that at all. So if your manager is okay, as long as you're doing your work, your manager is okay with how long you take off, that's fine. The problem is deception. So if you are clocking in that you've only gone for 1 hour, that's a lie, that is. Right, that's deception, that is. Now you'll be sinful for the lie, but the money itself, it will not be haram for you to take. So money will be allowed for you to take, but the obviously the action that you're doing will be considered sinful. Yeah, because I assume the contract does not mention that if the time, if you don't work the full hours, you don't get paid. Yeah, I don't think that's the. So yeah, the money will be allowed, but it's going to be sinful. You should ask Allah forgiveness, and you shouldn't lie. Basically, you should be honest. Speak to your boss. What's your favorite color? I have feeling purple. No. Favorite color is depends. I mean, look, see, I don't like people asking these kind of questions because in my mind I start thinking about different types of things and different types of colors. So, for example, the sky, I like blue skies. Yeah. So when it comes to skies, my favorite color in the sky is blue. My favorite color in the grass is green. My favorite color in water is colorless. My favorite color when it comes to milk is white. My favorite color when it comes to clothing is maybe black or red or maybe blue. Yeah, depends exactly what kind of clothing it is. So when you ask me this kind of question, I start to think very nuanced about this, very specifically. Yeah, very detailed about these kind of things. So when people say, what's your favorite color? I think that's a very vague question, and I think you need to be very specific. Exactly, what do you mean? What is your favorite color? And then are you asking what shade of color? Because there's different types of shades on there. Okay, anyway, you're always talking about biryani. Have you ever tried lamb, beef, halim, beef nihari? Okay, let me check this. Lamb, beef, halim, yes, I've tried both of those. Beef nihari, yes, I've tried that. Yeah, on Tariq Road in Karachi, I've tried that. Lamb bunna, you mean? Lamb bunna, yeah, I've tried that. Puri, chenne. Nah, I don't like. Is that puri? Channa puri. Which one's that? Nargasi kufte. I don't know about that. I've tried kufte. Beef pasandas. You're not making stuff up now, yeah. Sag, yeah, sag. Yeah, I like sag. Depending what kind of sag it is as well. With makai roti, yeah, makai ki roti. So makai ki roti is very nice with sag and with yogurt as well. You'll forget biryani. Yeah, I've tried all these in Pakistan. I lived in Pakistan 9 years. Yeah, so I mean, I think I've tried almost everything there. Yeah, almost, not everything, but almost everything. Okay. Salam Ustaz. The thing about biryani is, look, biryani, everyone's gonna like biryani because biryani is basically the kind of food which you can put into a box. You can eat it anywhere, whether it's cold, whether it's hot. It has its own sort of like taste with it. It kind of like you could just smell biryani and you want to eat it. In Eid you have it. Some people in the Jummah, after Jummahs, they have it. Okay, it's like the Swiss Army knife of food. Salam Ustad. I learned how to read the Quran without tajweed when I was a child. However, over the years I didn't reach much, and now that I'm starting to read Quran regularly, I'm struggling when I read it. Sometimes I feel as I've read the word wrong, so it puts me off reading the Quran, as I'm worried I might be sinning due to reading it incorrectly. I've tried to go to class to learn Quran with tajweed, but every time some obstacles come my way, and I'm unable to go to the class. I can't afford a home teacher, so I'm struggling as I really want the Quran, but at the same time I'm really struggling with some words, as the way I was taught to read the Quran was to join up the letters and make the sounds, but now I struggle with determining what letter it is when the letters are all on top of each other. I watched YouTube videos and I think I've understood it, but then when I go to read it, my mind is blank and I'm not able to determine the letters for sure what it is. So my question is, I'm winning if I'm reading it wrong, and what can I do? I'm whining if I'm reading it wrong. Okay, so basically what you need to do is you need to study with someone, I would say. And what you can with Alhamdulillah, the new era, you can actually online study with someone. You can get lots of teachers in Egypt and in Arab countries who are actually willing to teach, and they charge things like £5 an hour, £7 an hour, and you can study with them. Yeah, and you can study with them, and people won't know who you are, you won't know who they are, but you learn the Quran. So I would say, if you're going to find it difficult to study face to face with someone, study with someone online on Skype. You can study with them, and lots of people are doing this. So I would suggest maybe look into something like that. I mean, I've got a series. You've probably seen my series on YouTube of learning the Quran, and I've got a lot of people who have benefited from it. Alhamdulillah. Um, so check it out. It's called "Learn How to Read the Quran." So type that in, "Learn How to Read the Quran." Put my name, and you should come across something. So I would say, don't be shy, don't be afraid. Have a go, yeah. And the Prophet ﷺ in the Hadith said that the one who reads the Quran and makes mistakes, he gets double the reward. Yeah, he gets double the reward. And why? Because one is for making the effort, and the second one is, for reading it. Yeah, so it's the effort that Allah looks for. Salam. When a person passes away, they do a khatam on the 3rd day and then another one on the 40th day after. What's the significance of this? It's not part of Islam. This is not part of the Prophet ﷺ's teachings. It's not in the Quran. This is actually something which is from later on. I don't know, it's come from somewhere. But it's not considered to be anything which is part of the authentic teachings of the Prophet ﷺ. That after 3rd day you do this, after 40th day you do this. So this is why, if you're going to do this and you believe that these days are significant in Islam, then it falls under innovation. But if you're just doing this just because it's convenient, then it's fine. So whether you choose the 3rd day or the 5th day or the 10th day or the 20th day or 40th or 50th day, it doesn't really matter. If you're just going to have a gathering and you're going to read some Quran, and that's fine. But if you're specifying a 3rd day and a 7th day and a 40th day in a 1 year, and believe that it's part of the teaching of the Prophet ﷺ, then you got to prove it. If someone has passed away and you make dua and read Quran on their behalf, do sadaqah, etc., if they were destined to, for example, to go hell, could that change their fate and make them go to Jannah? So first of all, look, for someone who is going to go to hell, someone's going to go heaven, Jannah, that's all in the hands of Allah. We should never ever determine that. We should never even think that someone is going hell, nor should we ever think that someone's destined to hell, right? We always have hope that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to deal with them in the best way. It's like Allah has a cover over everyone. We don't know at the moment in the face of the earth, everyone who's dying today, we don't know who's going hell. Nobody knows at all. Even if they live their life apparently according to us in a state of disbelief, we don't know. Allah is going to judge people according to how He judges. This is why we worship Allah. So only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows this. Nobody else knows this. So this is why we should get it out of our heads to predestine people to Jannah or Jahannam. We hope they go Jannah. We have hope. Even when someone passes away as a shaheed, we say he is shaheed or she is shaheed, inshallah. Right? When we do all these good actions for them, this is our kind of way of hoping that they're going to go Jannah. Yeah, hoping. So we have hope in Allah and we pray to Allah, and as long as they have not categorically died upon kufr, like Abu Jahl, Abu Lahab, Fir'aun, these kind of people, these individuals are destined to Jahannam because Allah has promised that. We can't say that for others. Okay. Salam, if you want to pray Quran or any surahs, example for someone who's passed away, how should you do it? Yeah, all you have to do is just in your mind, you just intend that it's for them. And you can even make a dua and say, oh Allah, send the reward of this to them, and it's fine. You don't have to do anything specific for it. You just kind of like, when you're trying to do something on behalf of someone, right? It's just like that. So on behalf of someone, I want to give some charity on behalf of someone. In your mind, you're just consciously doing it on behalf of another person. Yeah, so you can read Quran, you can do dhikr. This is according to Hanafis and the Hanbalis. According to Imam Malik and according to the Shafi'is, they say that you can give charity and you can do Hajj and Umrah on someone's behalf. Nothing else. But there are some Malikis who allow that. But generally Hanafis and Hanbalis are on this position that you can actually do all actions on behalf of someone else. You can even teaching a dars, you can do it on behalf of someone else. And this is something that even your reward will not decrease a bit if you're doing on okay. Salam Ustad, what's the ruling on when you're reading namaz? Can we read in our head, or do our lips have to be moving and reading slightly aloud? Same with Quran, can I read in my head or do I lips? Okay, so when we're reading Quran in salat, in prayer, in namaz, right? According to the Hanafis, there's two opinions according to Hanafis of what it means to recite. So one opinion is that you have to be able to hear it slightly yourself, like even if it's like a faint hearing from your, like, you know, sometimes when you're in a quiet room and you can hear yourself, right? So you kind of say, Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. So you can hear yourself. The other opinion, so this is attributed to Imam al-Hindwani, and then the other opinion is attributed to Imam Karhi, who says that as long as you are pronouncing the letters in your mouth, so as long as pronunciation of the letters by your tongue is being made, even if you can't hear it with your ears, it's fine, right? So that's the minimum of recitation basically. And if you're reading outside of Salat, then it's fine to even just read it in your mind, but it would be better to read it with your lips. In other words, pronunciation with your tongue. Okay. I feel so far from Allah. I love Allah, but I was sucked into porn addiction in school, and since then I cannot escape. I try to stop, but I always relapse after a few months. I pray and ask forgiveness, but I cannot live with myself. You know, it's very, mashallah, very courageous of you to write this message and to kind of reach out. I think this is a sign that, you know, Allah is forgiving you. I believe this is a sign that Allah wants you to get closer to Him. And this is something where a person, when they know they're doing something wrong and they're struggling and they're trying to, this is something. And remember, every time you relapse into this, you don't worry. As long as there is this struggle there, you know, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows your struggles. Every individual struggles are different. Some people struggles, you have to remember it this way as well. In the past, the kind of the factors that would motivate a person to, let's say, become sexually aroused were very much less than what we have today. And today we have advertisements, we have billboards, we have, you know, especially in the West, people walking around in clothing which might be very seductive, movies, we have all these kind of things around us. So it's something which I think is very hard for youngsters. So this is why, again, make yourself a kind of schedule and try to every time increase the number of days that you can stay without pornography, yeah, and these kind of things. And inshallah, you pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, have a group of good friends, eat healthy, and you'll see that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give you good results. Can a man only wear one ring at a time? If more than one ring is allowed, does the weight for both combined need to be below the maximum weight? Yeah, this is a good question, this is. I mean, according to Hanafis, from what I understand, a man maximum only wears one ring. Yes, it would be according to Hanafis. I mean, according to other madhabs, I'm not too sure. Yeah, but according to Hanafis, it would only be one ring that they should wear. And this issue of it being 4 mithqal, this seems to be something which is consistent in Hanafi fiqh. However, I mean, I'll have to check that up, whether this was something that was intended. But yeah, they mention 4 mithqal. Other madhabs, they don't mention exactly how much it has to weigh. There's actually scope for wearing a heavier ring. But I don't know about the other madhabs. So Hanafis, yes, you would only be able to wear one ring. Is it okay to carry money with the Queen's face on it in your pocket when reading Salat? Yes, you can. So the issue with having faces is two things. Number one is the face is so big that if you were to have it in a distance, you can clearly see it as a face. And number two is to have it in such a place that it's respected and revered. So for example, having it hung on the wall or something like that, as though you're worshipping it. Having it in your pocket, having it on the floor, having it in a wallet, having it on the side, you know, I don't see anything wrong with that. Can you eat flavored crisps, noodles, etc., beef, chicken that are suitable vegetarians? Yes, as long as there is no haram beef in there. It's just the flavoring, it's fine. Is it okay to say Allah Hafiz and Khuda Hafiz? Yes, of course, these are du'as. So Allah Hafiz and Khuda Hafiz, this would be like saying, may Allah protect you. Allah is the protector, and hence you mean, may Allah protect you. So it's a good thing to say, it's fine. Did the Sahaba discourage cousin weddings? I don't think so. I was praying Asr alone quietly at uni and someone joined me. Should I carry on quietly or now start? Okay, Asr you actually have to read quietly, okay? At Asr you're not supposed to read aloud. So Asr Salat you read it quietly all the way. Okay. What is the rule? What is the rules for when a third person joins two people who are praying? Is there a set way the Imam moves forward, Muqtadi moves back, maximum number of steps, etc.? How should the third person make them aware he has joined? does he pull a person back? Okay, so let's say there's two people. Well, actually, I can actually do this example with my, finally I can use these dolls to show you guys how this works. I will show you the doll. Yeah, so okay, hopefully you guys should be able to see this. Yeah, let me see if you guys can see this. Can you guys see this? So basically, when I have these dolls in my room, what happens is when my nephews and nieces come, they always go for these, and even the cat. Catty goes for this as well. So these are damaged now because these guys seem to think they're toys and they're not. Okay, actually, I think it's a very bad idea. Well, actually, what I'll do is I'll just do it over here. You guys should be able to see in the background. Yeah, hopefully, inshallah, you should see in the background. So if there's two people, and you guys say my nephews and nieces are cute, look what they've done. They have destroyed these. Okay. Alright, so this is, for example, like, let's say this is the Imam. So Imam is standing there. And this guy, he's not here. So Imam is standing there, yeah. And then when this guy comes, yeah, hello. This guy comes over here, he says to taps this guy, and then this guy should step back. Yeah, take 1 or 2 steps back. And the steps should be slow steps. Like 1 step, 2 step, like that. And that's how they make it. Now, if there is no space to go back, what the Imam should do is, the Imam should actually go forward. Yeah, so Imam goes forward, and then this guy stands with him. Yeah. Okay, so does that make sense? Yeah. So I tried to show that to you guys, but okay, hope that makes sense. So yeah, so that's basically what happens. Should you never say inshallah in dua? Yeah, so in du'as, remember, in du'as, the Prophet ﷺ said that you should be certain in your du'as. So when you ask from Allah, be certain that Allah is going to answer your du'as. If you say inshallah, you're not certain. So your du'as, don't say may Allah cure you inshallah. Don't say that. Just say may Allah cure you. Say it like that, right? So if you say, if you say this, then you're not really kind of being certain. Does the masbook stand up whilst the imam is doing salam or after he finishes the second salam? So masbook is basically the guy who comes late to salat. So a person who comes late to the prayer, to the salat, this person should, one second. I think I know why it's lagging. Is it lagging for everyone? Oh, why have you removed Kamran? Can't remove Kamran. Inna lillah. Kamran's question. Oh wait, I can see Kamran's question. And you can't put him on timer. Untime him. Okay. Okay, so anyway. Okay, is it lagging a lot? So I don't know why it's lagging. You know what, it's probably Saturday, isn't it? So, it's peak time for internet. So people are probably watching the Urtugals and all of that. Okay, so 1 second, let me just try. Okay, so right, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna have a little break, so you guys have a break as well. 5 minutes break. I'm gonna make some tea, and then we'll continue, inshallah. Yeah, so maybe by then internet might become a bit more healthier. Okay, yeah, so I'll be back in 5 minutes. Okay, so back in 5. Okay, so Assalamu alaikum. Let's see if it's any better now. Can you guys see? Is it working? Yeah, just let me know in the comments. Yeah, they're still being answered from Curious Cat. So once I finish the Curious Cat, then inshallah. I mean, this week, mashallah, there was a whole list of them questions. So we're almost done. Right, inshallah, we're going to continue with the questions. Alhamdulillah. So yeah, so someone's dua has been accepted. Yeah, again, this clay cup is back. Alright, so let's continue then. Does the masbook stand up whilst the imam is doing salam? So when masbook is basically the person who comes late for salat. Person who comes late for salat, they're called a masbook, meaning they've missed 1 rakat or more. What they do basically is after the imam finishes, the number of rakats that they missed, they have to make them up. When do they have to stand up to make these up? Technically when the imam gives 1 salam, they can get up. But it's best to wait until the imam gives 2 salams. Right, so it's best to wait for 2 salams, but they can technically get up for 1 salam. Okay, is there a specific shaitan that causes waham for tahara? There are some narrations that mention this. Yeah, so some narrations mention, for example, there is a shaitan that that is specifically for like your the kind of whispers that you get in tahara. Have you washed your limb or not? Which is known as walahan. They call this walahan. But the problem is that first of all, the narration is very criticized by many scholars, but that doesn't mean that this concept is not valid. In other words, the concept of there being, let's say, this idea of multiple sort of like different categories of shaitans, different species of shaitans, different types of shaitans out there. Because we don't exactly know how jinns work. We don't know how many categories of jinn there are, how many species of jinns there are. So all of these things can, yes, it's possibly they can be. Is verbal intention necessary for salat fasts? No, it's not necessary. Heart is sufficient. So heart intention is the main one. In madrasa we were told to say, I pray my salah facing the qibla. I think everyone learned that when they were young. Yeah, I learned it from my mom in Pashto, in how to say. I can still remember some of it as well till today. I'm sure many of you guys have learned it. But as long as in your mind you know what you're praying, that's sufficient. You mean you don't have to say it in your tongue, because as long as you know in your head what you're praying, and it's fine. Is saying kasme but not actually stating what you are swearing upon, i.e. upon Allah, allowed? Yeah, technically it's allowed. You can, because generally you assume people are saying that's what they mean. Is cashback allowed? Again, this cashback, exactly how does it work? Whenever it comes to transaction questions, you always have to state the exact terms and conditions of the contract. So cashback, it depends exactly what you mean by cashback and what the terms and conditions state. Can you partake in a raffle? Raffles are not allowed. Raffle where you give money, so let's say there's 10 people and 10 people buy a raffle ticket, so they're giving, let's say, £1 each for the raffle ticket, so a total sum of £10 is being collected, and then one of the persons will win that £10. Yeah, so that's not allowed. Or you buy something with that £10 like a gift, and then one person will win that. Not allowed. It's gambling. Is shaitan's throne in the sea? We don't really know. I mean, the Quran doesn't really mention about shaitan's throne, where it is. There are some narrations that indicate that shaitan has a throne somewhere in the sea, but we don't know if it's one throne, if it's a concept. We don't know the full details of it. That's the thing about hadith. When the hadith mention to you one thing, it doesn't necessarily mean that is the absolute meaning of it. That hadith might be telling you one aspect of it. Like, for example, imagine there's a car, and let's say, for example, someone tells you a car has a wheel, and you imagine a car as being an entire wheel. Yeah, or someone says to you a car has a seat, and you imagine the whole car as being something that has a seat, or anything of that sort. Then you have to remember very carefully that the person's statement is a very partial statement. They're not giving you the full facts. So this is sometimes what happens to us. MashaAllah, Muhammad Abdul Rahman has donated $2. Alhamdulillah, Jazakumullah khair. MashaAllah. So that's basically what happens to a lot of people when they don't study fiqh of hadith, meaning like hadith in a holistic sort of understanding. So when we study, for example, something to do with, let's say, shaitan, or to do with jinn, or to do with anything of that sort, this is the kind of thing we have to always remember. Are we being given the full picture or not? And the Prophet ﷺ, sometimes he wouldn't give a full picture because he didn't really need to give that full picture. Okay, did some ulama believe the earth was flat? Yes, some ulama believed that the earth was flat, and the reason for this was because, see, the Quran, I mean, I made a video on this if any of you guys have seen, and it's very funny if you read the comments that are mentioned underneath it. It's very funny. You'll find like people arguing for and against. The Quran does not mention anywhere that the earth is round categorically, nor does it mention anywhere that the earth is flat categorically. There's nothing explicit mentioned, irrespective of what people tell you. I mean, I've read the Quran time and time again from cover to cover, and you can read it in Arabic from cover to cover, and you won't find any word that says it's round, nor any word that says flat. So when the Quran speaks, the Quran actually speaks from the point of reality, and it won't give you the whole schematics of the entire universe, the blueprint of every atom and every planet, and it won't give you all that detail. It's not for that. It's for guidance of mankind. So guidance of mankind is not based upon Allah telling us the shape, the curvature of the earth. So that's why if we, let's say, for example, our senses, our scientific, let's say, advancements at a particular time in history say something to us, we are allowed to believe a certain thing about that based upon that. As long as it doesn't contradict categorically with the Quran, we are allowed to believe that. Yeah. So, for example, like if scientists at one point in time believed that the earth was flat, then scholars would obviously have accepted it was flat, because that wasn't their field. It was the field of scientists. And let's say, for example, now most scientists believe that it's round, then we believe it's round. If most scientists believe that gravity pulls things to the ground, that's what we can believe. If you don't want to believe it, it's up to you. But it won't take you out of the fold of Islam. It won't bring you into Islam. The same with you. If a person doesn't believe there's cancer and believe that it's all made up by doctors around the world, it's up to them. They won't go out of the fold of Islam. But because it just seems more logical that so many people are telling you that there is a thing called cancer, then you believe in it. So this is why some people did believe that. But that's what you have to understand. For example, now scientists believe for a very long time that the earth started with the Big Bang, and now all of a sudden, in the last 10, 20 years, it's like kind of changing now. They're starting to believe in multi-universe. Yeah. So, um, okay. So, right. Does the Quran mention the Big Bang? Not necessarily. So the Quran says this, says very kind of like elucidates towards something very similar, but we don't know exactly what the Quran is saying. So, for example, like the Quran says that وَلَمْ يَرَ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا أَنَّ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ كَانَتَا رَتْقًا. So, don't the disbelievers see that the sky and the earth used to be ratq? Ratq means like all stuck together, yeah, like stitched together, something that's like leather that's stitched together. فَفَتَقْنَاهُمَا, and then we pulled it apart. So that pulling apart, what does it mean? Is it a big bang? Is it just something that's tearing some atoms apart? What is exactly is it? We don't know. Now, if you want to fit Big Bang onto that, because it's very similar, up to you. But if you're saying, no, I don't believe that the way Big Bang is described is what's mentioned in the Quran, that's fine. A lot of these scientific, so-called scientific discoveries in the Quran, they're not really scientific discoveries. What they basically are is people looking at scientific discoveries around them, common scientific discoveries, and then trying to fit it on to the closest ayah they can find. Yeah, so I mean, this is something which is, unfortunately, sometimes this can make Islam seem very silly as well. Yeah, and people will just make fun of, uh, make fun of, the Quran. That's what they do. Yeah, and I've seen some websites. Some of the things seem very plausible. Alhamdulillah. Some people may say, you know what, this is something which is very plausible, and this is something which sounds like very true. Alhamdulillah. Okay, if it is, that's fine. But you can't make it categorical. You can't say the Quran is categorically saying this. The Quran categorically says Allah is one, without a doubt, right? But the Quran does not say the earth is round, or does not say it's flat. It doesn't even use the word sphere. Okay, does the moon have its own light, or does it reflect sun's light? I don't know. The Quran doesn't say anything about that. Like, there's nothing in the Quran that says the moon reflects light, or it has its own internal light. Yes, some people, for example, like in the past, who believed the sun was giving out its own light, they would look in the Quran and they would think, okay, the Quran is calling the moon a nur, and then say, okay, the word nur is something that reflects light. That's not necessarily the case, because the Arabs also use the word nur for something that actually gives light as well, and something that reflects light. So this is why it's, again, like I said, it's all about interpretation. People are seeing something in the world and then they're trying to superimpose that on the Quran. Whereas what we should be doing is we look at what the Quran says categorically and we apply that to our lives. Okay. A Saudi cleric named Bandar al-Khaybari declared that the earth is a static object which is orbited by the sun. Is there any basis to this claim? I have not found anything in the Quran that says this. Nothing at all. Yes, again, you can take from the Quran. Yeah, you can take from the Quran, for example, many ayats that indicate this and say, oh, the sun rose and the sun set. Yeah, and the sun does sajda. Yeah, and you can say, well, isn't this indicating towards movement of the sun rather than movement of the earth? Not necessarily, because the Quran sometimes speaks according to the language of people, like even scientific language. People in science, they say things like, the sun set, the sun rose. They don't say the earth spun. They don't say that, those kind of things. So again, all these kind of scientific. I mean, I'm thinking to myself, maybe do a whole series and analyzing all the scientific discoveries and trying to see how. What do you guys think? Trying to see how accurate these kind of things are. What is the actual Shari definition of backbiting? So backbiting is mentioning something about another Muslim which they would dislike to hear. So mentioning something about another Muslim which they would dislike to hear. This is backbiting. So saying they have a big mouth or a big nose, or they chat a lot, or they are ugly, or that they they are slow, or they're this and they are that. Anything like that is backbiting, right? So anything which, however, like we said, if it falls under something which is to protect someone, you're saying it to protect someone else, or to help this in particular individual, etc., then it doesn't fall under backbiting. So for example, someone comes up to you and says, I want to marry Zainab, what do you think? And someone says, well, look, the honest truth is, Zainab, she has a very, very bad mouth. Yeah. Then in that case, you're allowed to say that it doesn't fall under backbiting. So stuff like that. Okay, the name of angel of death known. Malak al-Maut. I mean, this is what the kind of title that he's been given. Malak al-Maut is Israel. Yeah, it's sorry, Israel, not Israel, Israel. Will the women of this earth be superior in beauty to the Hul Ain? Do the ayats such as Lam yatmithhunna insun wala jan, etc. be applied to the women of this earth once they are dwellers of Jannah? Okay, so I mean, see, these kind of things, I think people like to know more details than is given to them. For some reason, I think we like to know more details about things, especially about Jannah and Jahannam and things like that. We like to know more details about it. The Quran, in fact, I think it'd be a good idea for me to make a series on these kind of like ayats of Jannah, ayats of Jahannam, just to kind of see what, so you guys can have an idea of how Jannah is described in the Quran and to what degree it goes to. And this idea of the women of this dunya being more beautiful, this is not in the Quran. Okay, it's not mentioned in the Quran. And in certain narrations, and some of the narrations have been criticized by scholars. So, I mean, these ayat seem to be talking about specifically Hur Ain, right? And people entering Jannah, their description, etc. These are things that are mentioned in many narrations, but some of the narrations are a bit problematic in their authenticity. So, will the women of earth be superior? Yes, we assume they will be superior, because if you think about it, Jannah has been made for them. Jannah has not been made for Hur. They've been made for the man and woman of this dunya. So therefore, they have to be superior, because something like your home is made for you, so your home is never superior to you. Okay, can ulama be referred to as Sayyiduna? Sometimes Syrian ulama give this name. So they say Sidi, Sidina. Yeah, so Sayyiduna, Maulana. Sayyid simply means our leader, and it was a very common term used by Arabs, Sayyid, and you can use it for someone out of respect. And nowadays in modern standard Arabic, they use it for like as a counterpart of Mr. So in English we say things like Mr. They will use things like they say something like like Sayyid, a Sayyid Fulan, yeah, Sayyid Fulan. And in Pakistani, Indian, Bangladeshi culture, when they say Sayyid, they have this meaning of they belong to the lineage of the Prophet ﷺ. So yeah, Sayyiduna, you're allowed to say that. Is the title Radiallahu Anhu only for Sahaba, or can this be for major scholars, e.g. for Imams? Yes, there's a difference of opinion of Radiallahu Anhu, can it be used amongst the ulama. Generally, they say it's allowed. Generally, there's permissibility to use it for Sahaba and non-Sahaba as well. But it's like a dua, really. May Allah be pleased with them. But some scholars say it should only be used for specifically for the Sahaba. Can parents open their child's post? If they are underage, yes, without a doubt. If they are over age, it's not like a sin or anything, necessarily a sin, but it would be considered to be a breach of trust, yeah, or something which I would say is, so there wouldn't be like, for example, any sort of court consequences, a judicial sort of consequence of this, but I would assume that it would be morally be wrong on the Day of Judgment. There might be question about it. Can Zamzam be applied as a topical cure? Yes, it can be. What is meant in the hadith that mention women who create gaps in their teeth? So basically, it's a form of like filing the teeth. So basically, what they would do is, so some people have teeth that are very like joined together, straight, and it wasn't seen as a beauty. So what was considered to be beautiful is if you kind of like file in between the teeth, so you can see the definition of each tooth separately. This was considered to be, this is like kind of like a beautification, and because it results in a kind of like permanent, you can say, manipulation of the features for a non-medical reason, then this was, the Prophet ﷺ prohibited this. Yeah, and he said you can't do this. Women or even men are not allowed to do this, because it was common amongst women that were doing it. Right, it would also apply to men as well, because I mean, it wasn't common for men to do it, but if men start doing it, it'd be the same. In a job interview, the interviewer female offers her hand out to shake. What do you do? They do always say first impressions count. Yeah, again, in these kind of situations, look, The fatwa would be generally that you don't shake hands, but if you know that your job depends upon this, and there is some leniency there, so you're not shaking the hand out of a kind of like a leisurely thing. This is something which might affect your job. If you, for example, like, no, this is the only job you can get and it's really going to affect you and it's difficult to get another job, yes, there is this whole idea of trusting Allah and Allah will give you better. But sometimes people know that in a practical society, these kind of things really make an impression. So in these kind of situations, there is scope. This is not an issue which is a qat'i issue, categorical issue. This is something that there is ikhtilaf in among some scholars. So in this kind of situation, there may be scope for a person to do so, but it should only be done out of necessity of that sort. Can you exaggerate in a job interview in a dog eat dog world? It can be heard to impress the interviewers. Depends what you say. Yeah, maybe you can say those kind of things. Can you burn old torn Islamic books? Yes, you can. You mean to dispose of them? Yeah. Can old Islamic literature be shredded and then be burnt? Yes, you can do that. There was a question about a qareen last week. Can you explain what it is? So qareen is basically, like in a narration it's mentioned that everyone has a qareen with them. It's a kind of like you have this like a guardian angel. You have this kind of the opposite of it, a qareen. And this qareen, it kind of it kind of inspires people to do something wrong. You can say it's like the opposite of the guardian angel. So you have a guardian angel with you. Now, what does this exactly mean? Does it mean that every time we're walking around, is like in the cartoons, we have, sitting on one shoulder, you have this kind of devil kind of speaking in one ear, an angel? We don't know the exact details of it. We don't know the full dynamics of how this works. But the Prophet ﷺ has told us that there is some sort of like a connection with a different realm that we have. And there is someone that is kind of like telling us to do bad things. We don't know if that person is with us all the time, if it's in a different dimension, how does it exactly work? Yeah, so these kind of things are mentioned. It doesn't mean that people are by birth possessed. It doesn't mean that. All it means is that there is some influence. So a person will be, prone to these influences. Again, this is not a categorical thing. We don't know exactly how this works. If the lower back crack is exposed in salah, does it automatically invalidate salat? Does the salah of a person in the row behind? No, it won't. It won't nullify the salat as long as it's only for a short while. Yeah, what will nullify the salat? If the rectum becomes exposed, for a male, if the testicles and the penis become exposed. If that becomes exposed, the salat becomes nullified. But if any other part between the navel and the knees is exposed, but not for a very long time, so only for a short while, then the salat will be fine, inshallah. And for people who see this, anyone who sees a naked body, their salat is not broken. Okay, salat's fine. Why were pigs created if they are impure? Okay, so good question. Why were pigs created if they... I think I've answered this before as well. So basically, look, when we look at the world, we don't know why Allah created every creature, and we don't know how many creatures Allah created, and we don't know how many creatures came in the past that have become extinct. We don't know at all. And we don't know how many creatures exist on other planets. We don't know. So in other words, we don't exactly know the function of every single thing, right? We don't know. We don't know its purpose. It's like, you can say, metaphysical purpose. We don't know. We might know scientifically, as a zoologist, we might be able to work out what its role is in the animal kingdom, but we don't know exactly. So when we look at the pig, we look at it from a scientific point of view. Like this pig, when it came into creation, when it came into existence, what is the kind of scientific role of a pig? What does it do in society? What's a dog's role? What's a cat's role? If you understand that, then you understand how this comes into existence. In other words, this is something which is part and parcel of the existence of this earth. You are going to get a pig-like animal. You are going to get a crocodile-like animal. You are going to get a dog-like animal. So all of these things have to be understood in a very scientific manner. Yes, when Allah tells us that the pig is bad for us, or we're not supposed to eat the pig, there must be a reason why we're not supposed to eat the pig, right? Just like, for example, poison. There must be a reason why we can't eat poison. Why did Allah create poison? Why did Allah create feces? Why did Allah create urine? Why did Allah create blood? I mean, the list can go on. But as a Muslim, we submit to these things. We accept these things. And then the jurists, they try to find as best as possible. They try to find reasons behind this. That's why we study fiqh. because we want to understand the rulings behind these various sort of like kind of things. Yeah, so why were pigs created if they are impure? So the way this question is looking at it is they're trying to understand it the other way around. So we can ask this question: why was feces created if it's impure? Why is urine created if it's impure? They're trying to understand everything in the world Allah creates should be pure. Everything that Allah creates has nothing to do with impure or pure. That's for us, relative to us. So for the lion, the pig is not impure. It's fine. Yeah. So when it comes to these kind of things, we look at it from a point of submission. Question: an imam did nikah for a couple. He asked first the woman 3 times if she accepts so and so with a full name for marriage, and she answered 3 times, I have accepted. The same procedure with the man. I think this is enough ijab and qabul, but I just wanted to be sure. Yes, that's correct. Directly after the imam discussed the mahar and the couple agreed that the mahar is an expensive gold necklace and a hajj journey, my question is below. Technically the mahar was discussed after the nikah. Is the man obliged to pay mahar al-mithl, or what is he to do in this situation? And what about the hajj journey for the wife? As far as I know, the Hanafis only accept material things as mahar. Okay, so yeah, so in other words, so in this kind of situation, if they both have agreed for that to be the mahar, even if it's appended to the marriage, it'll be counted as that, as long as they consummate the marriage. That's what he will owe them. If they don't consummate the marriage or they don't have khalwa, then it will be mahar mithl, etc. in that case. Otherwise, yeah, he will have to give her as long as he's agreed to it, he will have to give her the specific watch, or gold necklace, and the cost of the journey for hajj. He'll have to pay for that. Can a person who isn't present say things like, if I was there, I would have definitely done it. If it was me, I swear I would have done it. Yes, you can say that. Comments when it comes to children and doing khidmat for the elderly parents one sibling doesn't appreciate. Yeah, you can say stuff like that. That's fine. Can a Muslim say, if I only did this, if only I did that once the event decision come out? Yeah, they can say. There's a narration where the Prophet ﷺ, he said to someone that don't say if only, because that's like opens the doors of shaitan. But this is something which obviously is in context. In other words, this is referring to a specific situation. If, for example, you are in remorse about something that you didn't do in the past, and you said, if only I had done this, if only I had locked my back door, or if only I had turned the gas off, or if only I had woke up early, if only I had put my alarm on, right? So these kind of things you're allowed to say. The Prophet ﷺ was actually didn't want it to become like a kind of sort of like habit. Yeah, for this. So in other words, when it becomes a habit, what happens is people then begin to become despondent and have despair in life, and say, and it's always that kind of if only, if only, if only. They fall into kind of like you can say a form of depression. What types of yellow, red are permissible for men? Yellow are permissible. Red, there's ikhtilaf amongst Hanafis of whether it's permissible or not. Some of the Hanafis say it's allowed, like Shurun Balali says it's allowed. Maulana Zafar Ahmad Usmani says it's allowed, and others say that it's makruh tahrimi. Yeah, and then it all depends upon exactly how much you have. So I mean, in today's climate, in today's society, I think the red color is considered to be an acceptable color for men. In the past, it was a woman's color. In Morocco, at the end of Salah, the Imam only says one salam loud and doesn't say in full. This is Maliki madhab. How come some prophets whose names we know are mentioned in the Quran, Hazrat Shita were not mentioned in the Quran? Because the Quran doesn't have to mention. The Quran says, "Minhum man qasasna alayka." From some of the prophets are those who we mention, and some prophets we didn't mention. Quran simply, Allah, it's up to Allah who He wants to mention. So in the Quran is roughly 25 or 26 prophets' names who are mentioned in the Quran. Yeah, I actually have a series that I've done on Aqidah from the Quran, like ayats and things. It's called the Essentials of Belief or something like that. Essentials of Aqidah, I think. And in there I go through the prophets, the ones that are mentioned, and the names. Okay. So I mean, we can't know the why of everything sometimes. Like we said about the pig. Can Darul Uloom stop Hufaz who are sent to lead in another country from keeping the Hadiya money they get at the end of the month? I mean, legally they can't stop them. Yeah, but I mean, It's up if they want to kind of just listen to their teachers or whatever, but legally they can't stop them. I mean, that's theirs if they've given it to them, unless they've signed some contract or something. So if they signed a contract saying that we will not accept any gifts, then maybe. Yeah. Amir Sahib said that if you sleep in the front row in the Jamaat, the jinns will boot you out. Never heard of this. I don't know, maybe Amir Sahib has had some bad, experiences in the mosque. Will there be no contact with non-mahrams in Jannah? I mean, again, these are kind of things. Again, these are kind of questions like, will there be Ferraris in Jannah? Will we be able to have shisha in Jannah? Will we be able to eat, lamb biryani in Jannah? Have these kind of things. Allah knows best. But in Jannah, there isn't going to be any sort of like rules of this dunya applied there. Yeah, so there won't be this issue of non-mahrams. We don't even know exactly the dynamics of Jannah. If the ummah is so big, how will everyone get the chance to be in the company of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in Jannah? I mean, see, again, we're imagining Jannah to be like the dunya. Like in dunya, we have the concept of time and space. So in one space, there can only be one thing happening. Any one time. So again, in Jannah, this whole idea of space and time and this idea of 3 dimensions, right? In Jannah, we don't know exactly how it's going to work. Okay, is there a frozen part of Jahannam? Maybe. Some narrations seem to indicate that. Yeah, some narrations seem to indicate. Is a kunya name relevant in today's day and age? Not necessarily. You don't need to have a kunya. Abu or a lot of people on the social media, they have it, but it's not necessary. I mean, it's just like, I think it's just one of those things that people want to be like Arabs. Yeah, you want to Arabize things. I mean, like in our kind of culture, Pashto, Pathan's culture, we do have this kind of thing, but we don't say Abu We just say, Imran's father. Yeah, Zainab's mother. Yeah, that's how they kind of say it. What is the best Islamic way to pursue a debt owed? Due to a lot of cultural reasons, people get offended easily. I mean, it all depends on who you're asking, isn't it? I mean, sometimes maybe you send them a letter, maybe you send them to the police. Yeah, it all depends. Ask them. There's no specific Islamic way of going about it. Islamically, you obviously kind of communicate with them, and the person should legally kind of get back to you. Okay. What parts of are forbidden for a female beautician to work on, touch and see? Are the rules different in beautification in non-Muslims? So a beautician is basically not allowed to look at those parts of the body which a normal person is not allowed to look at. So for example, like for a woman, it would be anything from below the belly button to the knees. Right? Anything from below belly button knees, whether it's a Muslim or non-Muslim, you're not allowed to look at those. Now, actually touching those areas, there is scope for touching those areas as long as, some of the scholars mentioned that, it doesn't involve seeing it. So there's some scope of touching. So if a female can touch another female's area between the navel and knees, for example, removing hair, etc. But, you just got to remember it's what's it? You can't see those areas. Is it okay to purposefully omit gargling in wudu whilst fasting out of fear? Yes, you can do that. Can a man go for sports massage therapy conducted by a male, which includes areas such as hamstring? Yeah, I mean, these are for medical reasons, so it would fall under permissibility. Someone was told that the nail polish will mean that wudu isn't valid, and they replied by saying something along the lines of, why would God be so concerned with something so petty, insignificant? What response? Yeah, so this is a common thing that people ask. I mean, a lot of people ask this kind of thing, like, why do men have to cover up? Why do women have to wear hijab? Why would Allah, who's got so many other things that Allah is doing? See, in those kind of situations, people are trying to personify Allah. They're trying to give Allah a human characteristic. Just like a human can only focus on one thing at a time. And a human only looks at the biggest important things, doesn't look at small things. What we misunderstand is, how do we know what is important to Allah and what is not important to Allah? Everything is important to Allah. And the aim of a human, a Muslim, abiding by the commands of Allah is basically a very important thing, which is submission. This idea, how much are you going to submit to Allah? Yeah, how much are you going to, so for example, like, they did a test with little kids, and they brought a child into the room, put a camera there, hidden camera, and they put a plate of chocolates in front of the kid, and they say, look, don't eat these chocolates for 10 minutes or 15 minutes, and we'll give you chocolate. and some kids ate from it and some didn't. So the point was, look, it's not about the chocolates, it's about submission, how much we submit to Almighty Allah. If you read the Quran, you'll see the importance of giving up your own desires for the submission of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So a lot of people don't want to submit to Allah. They just think Islam is about rules. So in their mind, they're trying to figure out which rules they think are more important than others. So they'll think, so why would Allah want us to pray 5 times a day? Why would Allah care about, whether we drink alcohol or eat pork? It's only a food. It's only a drink. Yeah, but that's not the point. The point is that it's like a kind of piece in a big, you can say, a domino effect. So sometimes what can happen is a small little thing that you show this lack of submission in has a domino effect in society. So if you have 1,000, let's say, individuals who wear nail varnish and they don't want to take the nail varnish off and they don't really care about, if that's their mentality about nail varnish, what's their mentality going to be about how to do sajda? What's their mentality going to be about 5 times prayer? What's their mentality going to be about being careful about who they give their zakat to? What's their mentality going to be about? So in other words, Islam will not be a religion of submission. It's going to be a religion of personal desire. Yeah, so every individual is going to have their own personal desire, and they're going to shape Islam around what they think, which unfortunately seems to be what's happening to Christianity. What's happened to Christianity? Submission's lost. Okay. Is there a hadith that state that white hairs are nur? Yeah, some have mentioned that this is like a nur, like a sign of brightness from Allah. Does the earth grave eat the body of the Huffaz? I don't know. Wallahu alam. Should someone use the title Haji if they have been for Hajj? I mean, they don't have to use it, but it's just become a common cultural thing. It's not in any hadith or anything. Can congregational optional Salat Hajj be prayed, i.e. before an exam? It can be, but it's disliked. If it's done with what they call tada'i, calling and having an announcement and telling people, then it's makruh. Otherwise, maybe. Will the person who Allah allows to ability to intercede for others, those who died in the path of Allah, shaheed, huffaz, young children? Okay, where is that question gone? Okay, will the person who Allah allows the ability to intercede for others, those who died in the path of Allah, shaheed, huffaz, etc., told which family members are destined to the fire, will they have to choose who makes? So you see, this kind of question, for example, like people will take this question to be a very exact incident. However, this is not mentioned in the Quran explicitly anywhere, and in the narration that it's mentioned quite vaguely as well. So the narration mentions that a person who's memorized the Quran and acted upon it, then on the Day of Judgment, Allah will allow them to intercede on 10 people who are, who have sinned so much that they are going Jahannam. Yeah. So we don't know exactly how this is going to work. Who is going to be allowed from those 10 people? Will Allah prevent some of those 10 people? We don't know the exact details of this. The Hadith just gives you like a virtue of memorizing the Quran, and leaves the details of the reward out. But then, how far should we go in trying to figure out this reward? Just like the questions about the Day of Judgment and the hereafter and Jannah and Jahannam. How far should we go? So the idea is to motivate people. So I mean, who is going to go? I mean, what if in the family everyone's a hafiz? What happens in that situation? Can they choose someone from the next family? So this is like kind of going into the fiqh of intercession, which might be a good idea for people to look at, but I personally think that people shouldn't delve too much into these things. Where does yawning originate from? What does it have to do with shaitan? Yeah, so in the hadith, the Prophet ﷺ said, sneezing is from Allah and snoring is from shaitan. Now this does not mean that shaitan makes a person sneeze, yawn. This does not mean that. What this means is that the muhaddithin say this is something which is influenced by shaitan. In other words, that shaitan he kind of makes a person feel lazy, feel tired. So it's something which is associated to shaitan. It's not, shaitan doesn't make a person yawn, but it's like something which is attributed to a negative person. If you saw 100 people and you saw, let's say, 10 of them yawn in class, you won't think positively about them. You'll think negatively about them. Yeah, this person's lazy, or they're not concentrating in class, or they're not energetic. Does that make sense? Yeah. So this is why when that hadith says, it doesn't mean this is from shaitan, as in shaitan's the one that does this. The reason why people misunderstand this is because, unfortunately, lost in translation issue. If you don't understand Arabic and you don't understand how Arabs say things or what they mean by their statements, you make these big errors. Salam, are you allowed generally to invest in funds that are Sharia compliant? Yes, you are. MashaAllah, how did you get 34,000 YouTube subscribers? Do you think Allah has given you this blessing as a responsibility to spread the deen? Yes, definitely. Alhamdulillah. I pray a lot to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and I have a very good team, mashallah. Team that is with me, mashallah, alhamdulillah. I pray to Allah every time, praying for the team that's with me. And I know many of you guys make dua as well. And I think that everything that Allah gives a person is a responsibility on their shoulders. So even me answering your questions, I believe it to be a responsibility on my shoulders, and I try my best to answer it as best as possible. And if I don't know the answer, I just tell you honestly, I say I don't know the answer, because I don't want to make something up. So alhamdulillah, I believe, I pray to Allah. This is not a test from Allah to istidrajan, to kind of make me go astray, but I ask Allah to bless our efforts, all of our efforts, and all the efforts of those YouTubers and other institutes who are trying to do something for the khidmah of deen. And my kind of vision is that, look, on the day of judgment, when I stand in front of Almighty Allah, and Allah asks me, what have you done for this deen? And if I have so many people around the world who have benefited from me teaching them, I think that would be the one thing that would make me proud. Yeah, and I hope Allah accepts it from me. Okay, I used to read a lot of Quran, but these days work has taken over and I'm reading much less. My mother is saying I am in danger of doing Hajr of the Quran, and that attracts major sins. I want to start reading more, but what a point is it a person does Hajr of Quran? Okay, so Hajr of the Quran, like Hajr basically means like leaving the Quran, throwing the Quran to one side. So when they say Hajr of the Quran, there's different sort of like levels of it. Recitation, I would say try to read as much as you can in the day. There's no specific amount of reading. Try to read a juz. If you can't, half a juz. If you can't, at least a page. Wherever you can read every single day, keep it consistent. The other was to try to learn the meaning of the Quran. The main Hajr of the Quran, I would say, would be of a person not acting upon the Quran. Not acting upon the rules of the Quran. That would be the main sort of Hajr of the Quran, leaving the Quran. Okay. It is so amazing that you have this facility to ask a qualified person questions anonymously, which many people would otherwise stay silent about. It is also so special and unique, and clearly has a big positive impact. May Allah reward you. Mashallah. These kind of comments do make me happy. Yeah, I've got to be honest. Yeah, mashallah. When I see these comments, actually I saw a dream yesterday. Yeah, I saw a few dreams last night. It's like I didn't get proper sleep as well. Some of them were a bit scary, but other ones were. I actually saw a dream. I mentioned about teaching Quduri. So I saw a dream where I was in this big superstore and there was a competition, and the competition was you have to find the Quduri, it's hidden somewhere. And in my mind, I knew exactly where it was. So everyone else was like in a different part of the superstore, and I went to the place and I found it in this cupboard. And I had this cupboard, and it's called Quduri. It was like a different type of Quduri. It was like had some like green writing on there and things, and I had it in my hand, and it fell out of my hand, and I picked it up again. So I'm thinking that this is maybe like indication towards maybe starting the Quduri, and not like leaving it, not kind of ignoring it, and allowing people to benefit from it as well. So I don't know, maybe, inshallah. May Allah, I know so many people, mashallah, make dua for this channel and make dua for me, and it's, I'm not a very good person, Allah knows what kind of person I am, and inshallah, with your duas, hopefully, inshallah, Allah will give us barakah, inshallah. Is it bad to doubt of my validity of ghusl, major impurity and wudu? Sometimes it happens to me. If I don't know if it's a waswasa or not, but I'm scared that Allah. Okay, don't worry about it. Try your best. I would say people who have this, it's a very common thing that people have. As long as you have ticked off the boxes, your wudu and your ghusl is done, right? If you have this waswasa in your mind that repeats itself and you think it's not done, imagine, just think to yourself, it is done. Every time you think you haven't done it properly, just think to yourself, it's done. This is the rule the scholars use for people that suffer from waswasa. Okay, Salam, does the following hadith mean all board games involving a dice are haram? Whoever plays with a dice is as if he dipped his hands in the blood of the swine or pig. Please, can you clarify? Yes. So I mentioned this before, and I'll mention it again. When we look at hadith, one of the most important things we have to look at is when the Prophet ﷺ says something, is how does he say and what's the context of that in his time. So for example, like games in his time were looked at or frowned upon in this time because there was usually gambling involved. It was like basically, when you go to like a casino, right? In a casino, what do you see in a casino? In a casino, you'll see gambling, you see alcohol, you'll see these kind of things taking place. Yeah. Similarly, for example, like bookies or in a pub, you'll see negative things. If you think about someone who sells drugs, you will all in almost all situations you'll find other like illegal activities taking place. So in the time of the Prophet ﷺ, when it was a very common culture, people who used to play with dice would gamble. It was a gambling sort of like society, and alcohol was present as well. So the Prophet ﷺ wanted to get rid of the root of those sins. So he made a mass prohibition of lots of these games that were done. So that's why when we look at it retrospectively and we see the board games, it doesn't necessarily mean that board games until the Day of Judgment are all haram. Because, like from a fiqh point of view, it doesn't make sense why Allah would prohibit, people doing some sort of like allegedly activity. Right? It doesn't seem to be connected with something which logically is wrong. It's like it's not harming another person. It's not involving losing money, like playing football, for instance, or just running up and down the road, or something else like playing computer games. So this is why the Hanafi scholars have said, as long as it doesn't involve any gambling, as long as there's no alcohol present in that culture, and number 3 is that as long as there is no sort of like as long as there isn't any sort of missing of prayers or stuff like that, then it's fine. Yeah. So this is why these kind of hadith have to be understood in context, and that's why I always tell people, look, do not forward a hadith which can have very, very vast difference in meanings to people, because it just confuses them. Okay. Assalamu alaikum. Is it permissible for one to sleep with the feet towards the Qibla? It's best to avoid. Yeah, it's best to avoid it. A person will not be considered to be sinful, but it's best to avoid these kind of things. Try to, if you can, try to sleep in a different direction, because the Qibla should be something which is revered in our hearts. And if you know that putting your feet towards the Qibla in your culture is considered to be wrong, then you should avoid it. But if you're in a society where it's considered to be fine, then it's fine. Okay, I love you for the sake of Allah. You change my life and bring me closer to my Allah from your videos. Allahu Akbar, mashallah. Jazakumullah khair. This means a lot, mashallah. Sometimes I read these kind of messages and I think to myself, I don't even, half of you guys, I've never seen you guys, half of you. Most of you guys, I've never seen you, I've never sat with you, I've never eaten dinner with you. But mashallah, these kind of messages, they do kind of cheer me up, alhamdulillah. I'm not a Muslim, but I came across your videos on YouTube and amazed at the reasonableness and logic of Islam. And I can only thank you for achieving this understanding. I have no Muslim friends, but I hope to visit my local mosque soon so that I can learn more. Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah. I am very, very happy that I can help in any way possible. If you want to, reach out to us, or you want to reach out to me, I'll be very happy to see how I can help you, inshallah. And if you have any sort of questions or anything, inshallah, I'll try my best to be able to answer in the best way possible. So, look at this, subhanallah. We don't know how much impact YouTube channels are having on people. Yeah, and this is why I say, if you haven't, all the questions are finished, by the way, yeah? Curious Cat, all the questions are finished. Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah. See, every week now I've realized what's happening since I've started doing this regularly every Saturday. I've realized that people are now are coming on this Q&A and asking questions, and now the number of questions increasing. Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah, it's good. So this is why, guys, we need to be very serious about, if you want to learn about the religion, 2 things that we have to do. Number 1 is we have to make active steps to learn the religion, and number 2 is what we need to do is we need to support our local scholars, any initiative that is a very good initiative. In other words, it's very practical for the community that they're doing, not just a scholar who's just doing a random thing, but look for those people in the community who are doing something which you can see the benefit, whether that benefit is a local benefit, whether it's a global benefit. If you see someone doing something very good, this my teacher used to say this to us. He said, if you see someone doing, support them financially if you can, support them physically if you can, spread the word about them, say positive things about them, because end of the day, it's that kind of like that support. Like in the Quran, Allah mentioned tawasaw bil haqq wa tawasaw bis sabr. Tawasi bil haqq is what we're after, supporting one another in what is true, what is right. And like the Prophet ﷺ said, anyone who builds a masjid, even if they support building of the masjid, the amount of a sandgrouse's, a bird that's the size of it's like a sort of like sparrow, sandgrouse. Even if they support at the size of a sandgrouse's nest, Allah will build for them in Jannah, a palace in Jannah. So that's why, this is why we have to support our locals. Anyway, now I'm going to answer your questions. So 2 hours is up, but inshallah I'm going to get through your questions, inshallah. Allah. Okay, boar bristles make very good hairbrushes. I mean, I've heard that as well. I think I might have used some in the past. So Hanafis do mention about boar bristles, like I said, and some of them, the Imam Muhammad says that you can use this for like stitching materials together if that's the only strongest sort of like material that you have. But if there's other threads available, then you have to use those. Is it okay then to have a birthday party with close people and give the person gifts? Yes, of course. Yes, bhai, you can give it. I mean, if you want to send me birthday gifts, bhai, I will accept them, alhamdulillah. Okay. Okay, is it okay? They say that it's against the spirit of Islam too. What's there to celebrate when you're getting closer to your death? What's it celebrating against death? Oh, bhai, everyone's dying. Yeah, we don't become like this kind of negative sort of mentality. Okay. I heard that is sajda shukr is allowed when scoring a goal in football is allowed according to the Hanafi madhab. Is this true? Abu Hanifa rahimahullah actually does not believe in this concept of sajda shukr. Yeah, but others do. Yeah, so I mean, I don't see anything wrong with it in this. I don't see a problem in sajda shukr. It's at the end of the day, it's being thankful to Allah for whatever Allah has given you. Again, the issue of playing football is fine. There doesn't seem to be any problem in playing football. Are you Ash'ari or Maturidi in Aqidah? So I think I've answered this about 2.3 million times. Look, when it comes to belief, right, I believe in whatever the Sahabas used to believe in. Because the Quran says, فَإِنْ آمَنُوا بِمِثْلِ مَا أَمَنْتُمْ بِهِ فَقَدْ اهْتَدَوْا. If Allah says, if they believe in what you believe, means Sahaba, if they, the people, believe in what you believe, they are rightly guided. So whatever the Sahabas believed in, i.e. the Quran, and whatever the Sahaba, the Prophet ﷺ explained, I believe in that. Yeah. So this is why we have this concept of the Iman Mujmal, which is the 6 things that you believe in. And Allah and His angels and the prophets and the divine books and the hereafter and the divine decree. Right. So we believe in that. Now, Ilm al-Kalam, Ash'ari, Maturidi, this is all to do with the fiqh of Aqidah, right? To do with like the kind of nuanced details of Aqidah. For example, like let's say there's a computer and I say to you, okay, do you use the computer? And you go, yeah. And I say to you, okay, do you know how a computer works? And you go, I don't know how a computer works. Now, can you live your entire life not knowing how a computer works, but you're able to use the computer? So you don't know all the workings inside, you don't know how to open it, you don't know what the chips do, you don't know what the circuit board does. So in other words, if a person can use a computer but doesn't know how it works, will that person be fine? Yes, he will. Like my grandma, she doesn't know anything about Maturidi and Ash'ari, but I believe that her Iman is an Iman which is acceptable, according to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I pray that Allah accepts her Iman in the Akhirah. So this is why when people ask this question of Maturidi and Ash'ari is like knowing how the computer works. So one is a person who can use the computer but doesn't know how it works, right? And one is a person who knows how to use the computer and also knows how the details work inside of it, right? So I have studied Maturidi Aqidah, right? I don't have an issue with that. It's a kind of fiqh. But my belief, Aqidah, is obviously what the Sahaba used to believe in, if that makes sense. So when people say, are you Ash'ari or Maturidi? I don't seem to understand exactly what they're trying to say there. Yeah, these kind of like differences on like certain issues regarding a detailed, nuanced like kind of concepts. Could you please answer my question on Curious Cat? Thank you very much. You're welcome. Seeker's Chamber, are you aware of system of Isnad present in passing down the Talmud? I am not aware of it. No, I'm not aware of it. But I know that there's 2 types of Talmuds. There's the Palestinian Talmud and the Iraqi Talmud, right? And the Palestinian Talmud is actually a shorter version, which is missing parts, and the Iraqi one has many other parts to it. So there's 2 Talmuds. Okay. I'm in need of Quran app in which the words scroll along with recitation and also provides the option to play surahs. The one I used before quit working. I don't know, but you know which one is good? I've seen is Quran Hive. Quran Hive, no Beehive. Quran Hive, Hive. Try that. Because Yaqub alayhi salam said, I only complain of my grief and sorrow to Allah. A lot of people use this to say it's wrong to share your problems with others, but I feel I have to do it. And I'm saying, no. See, this is a misconception again. In other words, see, when the Quran and Hadith talk about individuals, like the ideal person, they talk about ideal people regarding different situations of people. So, for example, like when Allah talks about Yaqub alayhi salam, the Quran is talking about Yaqub as a specific individual with a specific mindset. When Allah talks about, let's say, for example, let's say another individual, someone like the people who complained to Zulqarnain about Ya'juj and Ma'juj, that's a different type of person. So the mistake that many of us make is when we hear talks or when we read the Quran or when we listen to Hadith, we take the, like, for example, the highest level of faith of an individual, the highest caliber of faith of an individual, and we believe we have to be like that. Whereas, what about all the other people? Yeah, what about the Sahaba, companions of the Sahaba who, were not at the same level as Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu? How do we kind of deal with those? So I think a lot of this, is a kind of misunderstanding people have. Sometimes I blame it on people listening to too many talks. Again, they're taking their talks. You remember what I said last time? Was a lot of people don't know what's in the Quran. They don't take out time to study Islam in a more structured fashion, and they think they can learn all their religion just by listening to Mufti Menk talks or Sheikh Zaid talks or I don't know, some other speaker talks. They think they just listen to those all the time and they can learn all the religion. They can't. A talk does not teach you the religion. A talk will actually give you a kind of boost of iman. So I think people need to get that understood, and this is why there is a whole fiqh behind the idea of like characteristics or tazkiyah, like you can say, and there's books that have been written on this. And some scholars like Sheikh Sharif Hatim Al-Auni, who's a scholar in Saudi, he was actually saying this, a very interesting thing. He said, when people read the books of Ghazali, they forget that the books of Ghazali were written for the people of his time. So in other words, the kind of spiritual sort of like remedies that he gives for the people of his time not necessarily are going to work for the people of today's time. So for today's time, we would need another kind of like a revisiting of these for the people of this time, because the kind of like the set of factors or conditions that the people who were facing in the time of Imam Ghazali are totally different or very different from what people are facing today. So in other words, you might find in them books them talking about certain spiritual things that today we'd find to be very hard to do, and then people will think that you have to be like this in order if you want yourself to be of the highest level of iman. And personally, I think a lot of people who give talks and a lot of people who give advice to other people, spiritual advice, I personally think that they are giving the wrong advice. They're like giving the wrong medicine to the wrong patients. That's what it is, right? They're giving like medicine that's supposed to go for a certain type of individual with a certain temperament and a certain sort of physique. They're giving it to the wrong person, and it's having a negative consequence on them. I don't know if that makes sense or not. Okay, I think the Islamophobes have gone. Alhamdulillah, they get bored. Yeah, this is a ni'mat from Allah as well. The Islamophobes get bored. Okay, alright, Ibrahim, salam brother. I really enjoyed your Balagha Tafsir session. What reference did you use to make the videos? Please recommend some Balagha based Tafsir. Okay, so a lot of people ask this question. So the Balagha series that I done on Surah Naba, inshallah I'm going to start another surah. It's just that it just kind of takes me a long time to kind of prepare for that. What I base it on is basically several things. Number one is my studying and my teaching and my experience with books of Balagha. So I have a whole list of books, and then the books, some of the books come to 20 books, and there's about 40 to 50 books that I've kind of studied on Balagha. And then secondly, there's some tafsirs like Kashaf, there's Al-Baydawi, there's Ruh al-Ma'ani, there's Tafsir Razi, there's Tafsir Abu Sa'ud, there's tafsir tahrir wa tanwir, there's tafsir al-baqa'i. Yeah, so these are the main kind of ones that I usually refer to. These are some of them. Then I look at, let's say for example, like tarkib, books of tarkib as well, and then I look into linguistics, dictionaries. So I probably end up sometimes looking at well into 30 to 40 books, you can say, just to figure out one verse of the Quran. So it's not, I don't find like answers exactly like that. I have to kind of use understanding of the principles that are mentioned in order to be able to come out with this, because a lot of the kind of stuff you won't be able to find in a book. That's why it's a lot of kind of things is based on experience. Okay, subhanallah, may Allah help you, brother. Getting mad from these comes. Yeah, definitely. Where are all these trolls coming from? Exactly. Strange people, nothing better to do. Alaikum assalam, unknown. I have heard that Imam Abu Hanifa's general ruling on sajda of shukr is that it is makruh due to the front of others established from sunnah. Yes, this is correct understanding. Ustad, you should have a moderator. Yes, and I made you the moderator. Medina, wa alaikum assalam. How can I call my Christian relatives to Islam? They are older and are set in their beliefs. I really know where to start. Okay, I mean, what you can do is just through your character, inshallah, start with your character. And slowly, when you get the opportunity, you can mention things like, oh, did you know that Islam also says this? Did you know that Islam says this about this? Slowly, bit by bit, work at them and make dua for them as well. Okay. Division isn't good for us. Somebody block me. Okay, can you, assalamu alaikum, give some insight onto Alam al-Arwah? So Alam al-Arwah seems to be something which the Mufassir mentioned, is that it's basically before humans are created, our souls are in a realm which we don't know, a different dimension you can imagine. So we don't know where our souls are at the moment. Are they inside of our body, or are they in another realm and connected somehow with some sort of energy? We don't exactly know the reality of that. Again, we don't know all of the blueprint, all of the details of where the Alam al-Arwah is and how it works. Okay, Ustad, answers from this curious cat. Okay, which Arabic novels do you recommend? Like I said, if you go onto that website that I mentioned, I think it's called. If you remind me, I can search it for you. There's an audio kind of like a list of them. Things like La Miserables was it was called, and A Tale of Two Cities, that's also translated as well. There's quite a few of them out there, but I don't usually I'm not too keen on listening to novels. Okay, yes, indeed, respect and become exposed to Islam. If while doing waxing you notice some blood on your arm and just wipe it off, not wash the arm, is it okay to pray like that with some blood stains on your body? Yeah, so if you have waxed and it has come out from the wound and it has moved slightly, then you have to do wudu again according to Hanafis. Not according to the Shafis. Hanafis, yes. One of my teachers have mentioned that others coming to masjid is fine, but Muslims should not go to churches or temples because these are places of kufr and shirk. Is this correct? Not necessarily. Yeah, not necessarily. Yeah, I mean, that wouldn't necessarily be the case. Yes, maybe some people, if in a society where people are using that as an example for their religion to be correct, but to visit, there's nothing categorical to say you can't enter their places of worship. Okay, what's the combination of shaitan's whispers and OCD? Shaitan attacks us more when we have an idle mind. Not necessarily. See, this idea of what I think see what happened in the past. People did not research the mind very well psychologically, and they couldn't kind of come out with these ideas, fully sort of like researched understanding of what OCD means, and they blamed everything on shaitan because that's how the old text kind of attributed things to shaitan, that these are whispers, that's how they kind of looked at it. So when we say whispers of shaitan, I mean, when things are attributed to shaitan in hadith, they're not always attributed to iblis or jinn. They could be attributed to something negative, evil. And this is where we get confused. Like sometimes the Prophet ﷺ would say the black dog is shaitan. So that doesn't mean that he's a jinn. It just means it's something that does bad because its evil outweighs the good. So I think some people, they have this understanding that waswas are from shaitan. I personally believe I don't believe all waswas are from shaitan. Maybe some of them are demonic influences, yeah, But I think a lot of them are simply just an imbalance in brain chemicals, and that can be treated by a doctor or by some counselor. Okay, I used to love watching it. Okay, part of last sermon, Prophet ﷺ, all mankind is from Adam and Eve, and Arabs have no superiority over non-Arabs. Non-Arabs superiority over Arabs. Okay, on the topic of addictions, would you recommend a sheikh of tazkiyah based on what the Salaf have done, i.e., this practice from the pious people of the past? Maybe. I mean, you don't have to go to. I don't think you have to go to a sheikh of tazkiyah. I think maybe even if you go to like a mentor, some sort of support, like they have in, alcohol, or as the Alcoholics Anonymous, AA, Addicts Anonymous, where you have a mentor, a buddy system, and they kind of give you support. You contact them, they speak to you. You have this person to talk to. Yeah, and I think a lot of this kind of tazkiyah thing, you have to be very careful. You have to know a person who the tazkiyah is. The person understands problems of today's society and has a very good understanding of it. Not just a person who just gets ayats and kind of remedies from books and kind of just dishes them out to people. Yeah, I think it has to be a very kind of qualified person, and I really kind of see that happening today. Also, a white has no superiority over black, no black has superiority over white, except by piety and good. MashaAllah. I have heard a lot of elders saying that if you're nursing a child and become pregnant with another, then you have to wean your baby off your milk because it's not park. And yeah, so see, there's a hadith where the Prophet ﷺ, initially he used to say that, it's called the ghayla. It was called ghayla, where a pregnant woman, a woman who's breastfeeding became pregnant. They would say, don't give the child the milk because it weakens the child. Then the Prophet ﷺ later on said, I've seen the Byzantines and I've seen the Persians who do this, and their soldiers are as strong as ours. They can sit on a horse, meaning there's nothing wrong with them. So this was just a misconception. He just said, it's fine now. So sometimes the Prophet ﷺ would give a kind of suggestion to people, not as an Islamic ruling, but as a kind of like just advice, health and safety advice. And sometimes he would change it. Is deception haram? Depends, yes, it's haram. And to what extent? For example, cheating in exams, mocks, yes. Yeah, I mean, cheating, anything you're cheating in, anything you're sort of like, if it's explicit sort of a cheating that you're doing, where you have made an agreement with someone and you're lying or you're cheating, and it says explicit in the exam that you're not allowed to look at anyone else's, then yes, it would fall under a sin. Otherwise, it would be something morally wrong. The fiqh of colours, yeah. See the question answer on that. Why do you have to complicate everything? It was a simple question. Well, that's it. I gave a very appropriate answer. Okay, now we'll have to do a series on usul of colors. Alhamdulillah, takubriyani, mashallah, mashallah. Okay, is wearing leather socks actually sunnah, or is it just the understanding that massa on them is permissible part of it? Yes, it's just the massa is considered to be the sunnah act. The wearing of leather socks is not considered to be any more religious. You don't get any extra reward for wearing leather socks. Okay, skip down. Assalamu alaikum, Ustad. What did you think of the election? Why were your thoughts on Boris Johnson? A bit random. Yeah, I mean, I think, end of the day, we can't really make much of an impact on the government. We know that. We're a minority here. And I think, Allah knows best, how the people voted for Conservatives and what the outcome is going to give. So I'm not an expert in politics, but it's just, politics is just like a kind of, end of the day, it's like a kind of, you can say a kind of game. Yeah, it's just, if you know the best tricks of the game, you're going to win. So it seems as though Conservatives know the tricks of the game and they know how to manipulate the masses, and that's it. Is walking past a person praying not allowed or just disrespectful? Yeah, so walking past them, that you kind of cross their path where they are doing sajda, that's absolutely not allowed. But if you cross past them after that, some of the scholars say it's allowed. Hanafis say up to 3 rows you can go past. Yeah, so that would be counted sinful if you go before. I would vote for MP as my MP. Okay, there you go. How can I love Allah? Where to develop? How can you love Allah? Read more about Allah. That's how I say. How to develop? Yeah, read more about Allah. Okay. Down. In Salah, if after Surah Fatiha one is going to start reciting from the beginning of Surah Tawbah, Should one abstain from saying Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim? Yes, it's best to abstain from saying it. Yeah, because the surah, according to the Rasm al-Uthmani, doesn't start with Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Okay, subhanallah, can you guys believe colder in, mashallah, weatherman? Okay, okay, skip down. Mufti Bai, bro, not see you later. One asked about praying Asr alone and someone joined them. Is Salah valid behind a person with no niyyah to be Imam? Yes, according to Hanafis, it's allowed. The Imam, you can actually be alone and then someone comes and joins your fard. Yeah, you can become the Imam. You don't have to make intention for it. Can we celebrate New Year? I mean, you can celebrate New Year. There's nothing wrong with it, in the sense that, you know, it's just like a celebration. Like, can you celebrate birthday? Can you celebrate particular? Yeah, there doesn't seem to be any sort of religious connotation to end of year. But I mean, again, it's that kind of thing that, you know, how far do you want to go with it? Yeah, and then, you know, a lot of these kind of parties that they have involve some sort of alcohol or something. If it does, then you should avoid it. What is the ruling for wearing a tie? Totally allowed. Okay, skip down. Some people say that if we have wronged someone, we will not be forgiven unless that person forgives us, whereas others say that it is not true and quote the hadith of a man who killed 99 people. Okay, so yeah, so I mean, basically, when it comes to this idea of wronged, yeah, so in other words, we do know that huququl ibad, the rights of the people, have to be you know, taken into consideration. So if a person has wronged another person, that person must forgive them, yeah, for that. As for the hadith regarding, we don't know whether this was in the past nations, a separate ruling. We don't know the people who he killed. Was it out of ignorance? You know, was it before he accepted Islam? We don't know all these facts. So that's why we can't just use one case to try and override. Like in usul, you have one case which is, let's say, zahir, and you have something else as mufassar. Zahir cannot override a mufassar, if you know what I mean. I actually had this question. Someone asked me, I gave a talk and I mentioned this hadith, and at the end of the talk this guy put his hand up and said, how can Allah forgive a man where you know, he's committed so much murders? So I said, why, look, who are you to judge Allah? Allah can forgive who he wants. Once I was a witness to a nikah of a brother who was a reaver, and the Imam got him to repeat the words, and all the while he was staring at the face of the bride as he was repeating the words. MashaAllah. Yeah, love at first sight. Alhamdulillah, fixed now. Okay. I want you to know, what resources did you use for the Balagha series that you did some surahs of Juz Amma? Yeah, so I think I answered that one. Are you drinking from a clay cups? Yes, clay cups. Made from the earth. Yeah, it's not necessarily made from the earth. I mean, yes, it's made from the earth, but it's not necessarily sunnah. The Prophet was made from wooden utensils, from you know, stone utensils, leather utensils. Yeah, it's fine. Assalamu alaikum. So is going to the cinemas considered as haram? Not necessarily. I mean, it depends what you watch. If you obviously, you know, if you're going to cinema and you're going to watch something which is wrong, it's like watching it on your phone or on your computer or your TV at home. Does a masbook say the takbir when standing up after? I would only say that going to cinemas, if it's someone who is an upright person in the community, like a leader, a scholar or someone, maybe for them they should avoid these kind of things, because you don't want to make something which is like a cinema generally kind of like the kind of things that people, let's say, watch in cinemas. It's not good to have a community leader as being someone who, although you can't say it's necessarily haram, sometimes the community leader should avoid these kind of things. Okay, doesn't masbook say that the takbir when standing up after the taslim of the imam? Yeah, he gets up at taslim. I think I answered that one. Okay, Muhammad Abdul Rahman, mashallah, $2, jazakumullah khair, alhamdulillah. May Allah bless you, brother. If a person is praying and you have to leave the prayer room, would the person's salah break if you walk past them by missing a saf? No, it wouldn't break. Yeah, going past someone does not break their salat. Like I said, according to Shafi'is, you can walk past as long as the place where they do sajda, you walk beyond that, it's allowed. And Hanafi say you should go past 3 safs. What about saying it's a sphere? Yeah, so there's nothing in the Quran that says it's a sphere. about the earth being a sphere. If a woman is wearing gold, does she have to pay some form of charity for it specifically? According to Hanafis, yes. If she owns gold, whether she wears it or not, if it including her cash that she owns is more than the threshold of zakat, then she has to give zakat on it. Mufti, please check out my channel. I have been uploading your answers. So if you, Bahruddin, if you in the main comments, not on these comments, so after the video finishes, if you can put up your channel, I'll check it out. Okay, so once you said that we misinterpret the ayah that Allah Ta'ala does not change the condition of people until they change the condition of themselves. Can you please explain what is? Yeah, so this ayah, Inna Allah la yughayyiru ma biqawmin hatta yughayyiru ma bi anfusihim. So there's two positions of scholars on this. One of the position of the scholars is that this ayah means that if you're living in a situation, in a positive like kind of condition, Allah will never change your condition from positive to negative, like from affluence to poverty, or from good to bad. Allah will not change that unless you do something which necessitates that. Yeah, so you do something wrong, sin or etc., then Allah will change. The other meaning, which I think is the more is actually I heard this from Mufti Rada al-Haq from South Africa. He came to our madrasa in Pakistan, Karachi, and he explained 4 meanings of this. I can't remember all 4, but several of the meanings. One of the meanings was this, the one that I just said, and the second meaning was Allah will never change your condition unless you take the first step to change it. Yeah, so in other words, to become a better person, you can't just wait for Allah to change you. You have to take the steps, and I think that's a very practical meaning. Is this question answer regular? I try to do it regular Saturdays. For example, everyone says sunrise, not earth turn. Is anyone here from Pakistan? MashaAllah. Pakistan searcher. Okay, I believe Azrael is the angel of death. Okay, thank you. Has to be true for it to be backbiting. When doing ghusl to someone who passed away, do you wash the body, sidr leaves? You can use common shower gels today. It was just something that was available in them days. So nowadays you can use whatever's relevant in today's times. Assalamu alaikum, Brian Fung. Sorry, I probably said your name wrong. How do we get the ummah to be more interested in Islamic knowledge? That is, that's the $1 million question. That is. Yeah, I think that's a very good question. We need to come together with some sort of I think what we need to do is we need to set up things in place that will make it facilitate for people to learn more. Yeah, so in schools, in maktabs, in social media, we need to have a system where we have regulated ilm knowledge that can be disseminated to the masses. Allama Badruddin in Tadhkiratul Sami' wal Mutakallim mentions that one should call their teacher by saying Ya Sayyidi, Ya Sayyidi. Okay, mashallah. Okay, Arabic Hafiz Shu'aib. Does one have to pay the saman of the item or qima if he destroys after attaining it from a bayt fasid? Yeah, so if he's attained it with the permission of the seller, so the seller has given him permission of it, and that means he's become the malik of the item. Yeah, so then whatever was agreed upon, he would have to give that. Okay, sorry, bayt fasid, yeah, no. So bayt fasid would be he'll have to give the qima. Yeah, so if it gets destroyed, he gives qima, he doesn't give the thaman. Yeah, so thaman is only something which is in the bayt sahih. Okay, won't women also get hur al-ayn because of hur, and hurun is both masculine and feminine? Also, the Quran mentions males of eternal youth. Allah knows best. I mean, I haven't found anything explicit to that. Some people, I think like Dr. Zakir Naik and others, they do kind of allude towards something. But see, the thing is, we're trying to use Jannah, for example. When Jannah is being mentioned, we're trying to understand Jannah in worldly terms. So in Jannah, we're trying to understand how will people travel in Jannah? Will we have to sleep in Jannah? Will we get tired in Jannah? Will we go to work in Jannah? Will we get bored in Jannah? I don't want to look at trees all the time in Jannah. I think people, they kind of like ask these kind of things. Okay, why do people say Ali karramallahu wajhu? Yeah, so this was because there were Khawarij, there were people who hated Ali radiallahu anhu. Yeah, and the Nawasib. And they used to say, Sawwadallahu wajhahu, they would say to Ali, about Ali, they would say, may Allah blacken his face. So people stood up for Ali and said, no, karram Allah wajhu, may Allah honor his face. So like a response kind of statement of the Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Fun, mashallah. Fun is up late. Past your bedtime, Fun. Wassalam. Okay. With a job interview, you could inform the company, the agency you're using for over a religious stance on shaking hands by email. Yeah, I mean, if you could do that, that's what you should try and do, definitely. Why do some people say studying philosophy is not permissible, whilst Imam Ghazali and other scholars? So I think that those who say that you shouldn't study is because they were looking at certain types of people. So certain types of people, their mind can't grasp concepts and they would easily fall into misunderstandings. So I think the prohibition was not a mass prohibition. It was a prohibition for certain types of people who are not qualified to learn it. Is it okay to eat vegan pork, pig's food, e.g. corn pork? Feels wrong. Yeah, I mean, again, it goes back down to bacon flavor crisp. Some scholars like Ibn Abidin seems to be inclined towards impermissibility of this in Radd al-Muhtar. But I mean, others seem to be okay with it. I mean, personally, I wouldn't eat it. I would feel like inside some sort of dislike for it. Because mashallah, 2.5 hours, the longest. I think is the longest. Okay, almost finished. Wa alaikum assalam, mashallah. Should do Diwan Mutanabbi or Maqamat Hariri? Yeah, I'm thinking of that. That's a good idea. Wa alaikum assalam, Sharif. Allah commanded Adam to state the names of the angels. Was it the angels' names or the names of the things? Again, this is a ikhtilafi issue amongst the Mufassirin. Some say that Allah had told Adam alayhi salam the names, the names, and actually read recently in some of the books of usul this concept as well. There's ikhtilaf of usuliyin, Hanafi usuliyin about this issue of the names that were mentioned. I mean, I personally like Tahir ibn Ashur's position, which is Allah, He programmed in Adam the concept of being able to identify names, to be able to define things, so look at things and be able to name them. So his naming was what we call like a periodic table naming. It was a property based naming. So like when Adam would look at a tree, he would name it by exactly what he saw. Like, when a child sees something, yeah. So like a child looks at glasses, and won't call them glasses, might call them eye readers, yeah, something like that, yeah. Or a door, they might call it like an open thing. So that's how he would name things. So he had this ability. Okay. Bill Gates has a YouTube channel. I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if he's watching into a lot of YouTube channels. He might be watching this channel. I know only one YouTube channel, that's Rock. Yes. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. Obviously, he's going to have over 1 million subscribers. Which colors are not worn by Muslims? All colors can be worn by Muslims, inshallah. Mufti, if ulama differ on issue of finance like bonds, can we follow the easier option? I mean, I don't know is there a difference of opinion on bonds? I don't think there is. I mean, you'll have to mention to me and I'll have to look into it. Is smoking shisha allowed in Islam because many Arabs smoke it? I mean, see, technically it's allowed, but if it's going to cause you harm, then it's not allowed. Yeah, if a person smokes it all the time and it's going to cause them lung cancer, etc., then no. Is it okay for a nurse to see those areas of woman below the navel if it's for health reasons such as cervical screen? Yes, it would be allowed. How do we know when we are going through a difficult time, if it's a test or a punishment? So generally take it as a test unless you clearly have done something wrong and this is a punishment, like this is a consequence of that. Yeah, so generally take it as a test. Add to the list. Okay, assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Is there a specific way to hold a miswak, also to brush the teeth? There's nothing specific. There's nothing for it's just some scholars mention that it should be done in a sideways fashion, like sideways. There's no kind of like sunnah of it. There's just like adab that are mentioned by some people. But yeah, I mean, I haven't found anything that's mentioned in authentic narrations. The Prophet will actually rub his tongue with it as well. He will do that. Okay, if the problem or issues brings you nearer to Allah, it's a blessing. Okay. Alhamdulillah. Ameen, ameen. Supermarket sweep, mashallah. No cap. Okay, someone told me that when you do Umrah in Ramadan, it's equivalent to Hajj. Is it true? It's a reward is like Hajj, so it's not equivalent to Hajj. Yeah, but it's like reward is like. Allahu Akbar. If the stock market crash happens, could this be a sign of a Dajjal coming home? Allah knows best. Okay. If the internet crashes whilst we're answering questions, that might be a sign of Dajjal. The true Dajjal is the east coast of Wales. Is it true that Dajjal is at the east coast of Wales? I know some other people in the east coast of Wales. I don't think they'll be happy with that. And will Imam Mahdi come on the odd year during Hajj season? I've never heard of that. Never come across a narration of that. When you yawn, Shaitan laughs at you. I mean, I've heard some narrations that he urinates. Yeah, so again, these are kind of like, these kind of narrations, do we take them literally or do we take them to mean some metaphoric sort of like meaning? That's the issue. And there's ikhtilaf amongst commentators on this. It's almost 11:30. It's almost 5 past 12 now. So many questions. Mufti Bhai, can you use mannequins to do janaza series or wrapping? Yeah, I think that's an excellent idea, you know. I might do that. We should be given preference for lobby for us. Would you rather fight 100 duck-sized horses or one horse-sized duck? Oh, there's a trick one that is. I don't know. I mean, if you fight 100, which one's going to be difficult, isn't it? Yeah, and the one big one's going to crush you, obviously. So I think 100 duck-sized horses. Yeah. They look cute. Block time, MP block time. Okay, some words on Mawlid and Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Okay, difference between makruh and zih and tahrim, and how would you translate it? Allahu Akbar. Okay, so it looks like these questions are not going to end. So I think I'm going to end. Yes, I'm going to finish it there. So I apologize for not being able to answer the rest of your questions. But okay, so I think these questions are never going to end. So mashallah, you guys have been going strong. So I'll have to stop it there. Jazakallah khair for I mean, yeah, hadith discussion is definitely needed because people take a lot of hadith and act like this fard. Yeah, definitely. I think usul fiqh and usul hadith are two important things you need to study if you want to understand how hadith work. So jazakallah khair. I'll have to stop there inshallah because I think I'm dying now of tiredness, and inshallah I'll try to answer the rest of the questions. I'll try to answer it some other time. Maybe in the week I might do a Q&A or something. But inshallah I'll see because there's quite a few questions left from this. So hopefully these questions will remain here, and I will inshallah hopefully answer them next time. So like I said, jazakumullah khair for you guys remaining, mashallah. I mean, today you guys have been almost 3 hours now, and you guys have been a good number, averaging out between 20 to 30 people, alhamdulillah. Yeah, and we've had some random Joeys popping up. Yeah, and they're being blocked, mashallah, alhamdulillah. Right, so but alhamdulillah, I think we got through quite a lot. Yeah, now anyone new that's come today, anyone that's new, remember, if you haven't liked, yeah, make sure you click like, guys, and make sure you subscribe, and make sure you share this channel with others, mashallah. And it's, actually, today is actually now, look at that, 29th. It's been 1 year since I started the Patreon. So alhamdulillah, 1 year since I started Patreon. It's been, midnight now. So mashallah, alhamdulillah to all you guys who are supporting the Patreon, and all you guys who are, supporting this channel in whatever way possible and giving me ideas. Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah. Nature Dreamer, mashallah, ahlan wa sahlan, marhaban, welcome, 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 like the Arabs say when you go to visit their country. Welcome, this is your country. Welcome, welcome, my brother. Alhamdulillah, blessed journey. May you have a blessed journey, your first time. Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah. Yeah, so Allah. Yeah, so today basically I went to a wedding. I had a wedding I had to visit, and mashallah, it was a kind of uh, you know, typical sort of like Pakistani desi kind of wedding. Yeah, they had like some drums in there, and they had, the usual A to Z. And mashallah, it was in the botanical garden. So the pictures I put up on social media, that was from botanical gardens. Yeah, patron Mubarak, mashallah, mashallah. Happy birthday, patrons. Allahu Akbar. Yeah, so that was from there. So botanical gardens, it was in a very fancy sort of setting. Inshallah, inshallah. Jazakumullah khair. So anyway, I will see you guys. Hopefully tomorrow I'm gonna do Surah Room. So I'm gonna do it maybe around about Maghrib time. Yeah, Surah Room, around about Maghrib time, something like that. So check it out, inshallah. And is anyone following the Surah Room series reflections? Yeah, anyone following it? Anyone benefiting from it? And if you have any ideas for the next surah which we can do in the next holidays that I get, then let me know, inshallah. And hopefully maybe I can make some plans with that. So you guys give me lots of ideas, alhamdulillah. And you guys are the guardians of Roots of Knowledge channel. Yeah, you guys are blocking, you've been all day been blocking people. So alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah. Yeah, jazakumullah khair. Idris, mashallah, you've been following it. Excellent, excellent. Surah Room series, yeah. Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah. Yeah, definitely. I'm gonna try to sort out. I don't know, the camera or this lag. I'm trying to sort that out. Get that sorted, inshallah. And so that at least people can benefit afterwards. They don't get a chance to watch it live. Yeah, Maghrib UK time. So hopefully after Maghrib UK time, inshallah, I'll try to do it. Because I've got a talk in the evening. So it's in a different city. In Coventry. Anyone from Coventry here? So if anyone from Coventry, maybe come down for the talk, inshallah. Yeah, you have, mashallah. Excellent, excellent. Yeah. Chapati, Pakistan's chapatis, mashallah. Yeah, definitely, definitely. Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah. Hamida, mashallah, has been following it. Surah Ahzab will be great afterwards. Yeah, Ahzab is very long, I think, but it will be very good. I think there's lots of kind of a new kind of things to look at in there, definitely. So okay, guys. So jazakumullah khair. I do look tired, and as you can see, these are some new mugs. These are the Roots of Knowledge mugs. Yeah, mashallah. The new Roots of Knowledge mugs. Yeah, what do you guys think of these? Yeah, and there's a Roots of Knowledge book as well. Yeah, a Roots of Knowledge book. Yeah, so imagine drinking from this mug. Yeah, imagine the kind of barakah you're gonna get, man. Imagine the kind of barakah you're gonna get when you write in this notebook. You know what I'm saying? So anyway, yeah. So this is basically the Roots of Knowledge. Yeah, this is the Roots of Knowledge merch. Yeah, and okay. So before I go, I'm gonna show you this. Can we buy these? Yeah, maybe, inshallah. Maybe some of you guys will get this in the post. Who knows? Only Allah knows the future. So this is a book I studied. Yeah. This is called At-Tawdih wa-Talwih. Tawdih wa-Talwih. Now, do you guys want to see what it looks like inside? So those of you guys here who are not used to reading, the handprint books, get ready to die. Can you see that? This is basically one of the most advanced Hanafi usul books. This is one of the advanced Hanafi usul books. Right, it's called Tawdih wa Talwih. Yeah, that's the text. It's a very advanced text. Yeah, and you only can study this like if you studied a good level of a good number of Hanafi usul books. Yeah, it's called Tawdih Talwih, and it's got a very good commentary on there by Al-Imam Al-Taftazani. So Imam Taftazani is a very well-known scholar, and his works are very beneficial. Yeah. Yeah, it's pink, but it doesn't mean by it's for like only for women, not for men. Yeah, so this is like a very advanced book, and see that kind of writing all on the side, those are like super glossaries. Yeah, so hashiyas upon hashiyas. So the author is basically, there's multiple authors in this. So there's like several texts that are written on this. So the original author is Al Imam Al Mahbudi. Yeah, and then there's like other authors, hashiyas upon this. So this, I would only recommend this for like someone who is like studied a lot of usul. Like if there's 10 steps of usul, this is like on step 9, 10. You're hitting 9, 10 there. Right, so it's very kind of advanced. It goes into ikhtilafs, it goes into kind of different concepts, etc. Like that. So yeah. So anyway, jazakumullah khair. Thank you very much, guys, for watching this. It's very late today. I was supposed to start at 9 o'clock, but I was doing a fundraiser for the homeless in the in Birmingham for Asufa where I teach. We also run outreach projects. So we run homeless projects where we help the homeless. So there's volunteers, and we collect money and we feed them every week, 4 or 5 times a week, and not just in Birmingham but in about 5 cities in the UK. And we also do domestic violence, help those women who suffer domestic violence. We have free counselling for them, free law clinic we have once a week, free food bank for those who can't afford, to be able to buy food. So basically today we had a fundraiser for that. It was on Unity FM. I don't know if you guys tuned in and listened to me. Yeah, but I was on there between about 7:30 till about 9. So it was kind of carrying on. I think I don't know how much they raised. So if I'm going to find out tomorrow exactly how much they raised. But mashallah, when we were online on air, we managed to get I think it was about £4,000. But that's not enough. Obviously, they need much more to run all the outreach projects. So yeah, that's what we were doing. Alhamdulillah. So 3:17, yeah, mashallah, mashallah, Allahu Akbar. Tahajjud time. So jazakumullah khair, guys. Thank you very much again, and I will see you guys tomorrow, inshallah. Remember in your du'as. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.